Tonight, Superman reveals it's been several weeks since the beginning of the Savage Dawn event, so you'd think that somebody would do something by now. Grayson spends several pages of his issue singing his theme song, which comes across just great over print media, and Teen Titans has managed to sink to an all-time low, and I just can't anymore, okay? I can't. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 230 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I don't really want to talk that much. I have a lot to say. I have so much to say, but I also have like 15 comics I need to get through, 16 maybe, depending on how you count. So let me just list them off real quick first. I'll give the brief justification and then if I have some time, I'll tell you what I need to say. So we have 14 comics to talk about. However, little weirdness there. In alphabetical order, we have Aquaman, Black Canary, Cyborg, Deathstroke, Grayson, Justice League 3001, Justice League of America, Omega Men, Superman, Lois and Clark, Teen Titans, We Are Robin, our weekly series of Batman and Robin Eternal, and our brand new number one, which is Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, Deadshot, and Katana. Now, the reason I say 15 or 16 issues is because, one, Justice League of America is like a double-length book, so already you can count that as two. Maybe, kinda. The other one you can definitely count as two. Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, Deadshot, and Katana is an anthology book. It is two separate stories, one of Deadshot, one of Katana, and I debated about splitting them up and doing them on separate weeks, or at the very least separate sections, but then I said, nah, and now I'm doing it all in one. So enjoy that, like 20-minute long segment for that one comic. The only other thing I really wanted to bring up here is as I'm recording this and potentially as you are watching this, we are just coming out of a major snowstorm that hit the East Coast here. And I'd love to say that I am in prime physical condition. I would love to say that I am able to do all sorts of flips and leaps, and I'm a regular acrobat, but I read comic books, and so I had to shovel a lot of snow about 30 minutes before recording the first segment of this episode. So if I look flushed or out of breath or anything like that, just know I was actually doing something. I wasn't just like, oh, I've been reading comics and eating Pop-Tarts all day. No, what's a better one? Pizza rolls. There you go. That's more disgusting. So just know that I was doing physical labor. Maybe it won't show up. Maybe I'm outing myself for no reason. But I don't want it to seem like I'm just so unfit that sitting in a chair wins me. So yeah, like I said, a lot of comics to talk about. It's going to be a long one, so sit back, relax, and let's talk about some Suicide Squad movie tie-ins. Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, Deadshot, and Katana. It is an anthology book, so we got one full story about Deadshot and another completely separate yet full story about Katana. So we pick up with the Deadshot one, written by Brian Buccellato, art by Viktor Bogdanovic, and we open up in South America. We see Deadshot's going through killing a bunch of cartel members who are doing whatever. He's talking about how he doesn't fear death, how it doesn't play into his decisions. He's just there to shoot people. And we see that as the cartel members lock onto where he's firing from the tree line, they all aim their guns and shoot at him. But turns out it was a trap. It was a trick, and it was actually just like a scarecrow. So he manages to fire off explosive rounds or something that like kill pretty much every member of the cartel around here. We get a bit more information that the target's name is Guillermo Shea La Paz, who's just your run-of-the-mill cartel member leader guy, but turns out he's not here. So as Deadshot makes his way back into the back, they're talking about him. They see like all this stuff on the TVs. They're like, oh yeah, we tried to hire him once, but they said that he doesn't work for drug dealers or cartel members because his parents were both killed by drug dealers and whatever else. So he has a vindictive thing there. But he ends up shooting his way into the back. He kills 2 of the 3 guys that may have information as to where this Shea guy is. And he's like, well, I got 1 left. Let's hope that he's got the answers. And then he calls Waller as everything's on fire, saying, hey, he wasn't here, but I got this guy. So am I done here? And it's just like, yeah, all right. So we cut to 3 months later, where he's just sitting in a cell waiting for the next thing to do, when all of a sudden a envelope gets slipped under the door with his name on it, and he checks it out, and he immediately storms into Waller's office, as much as he can storm from a cell, and he's like, hey, is this true? Like, you knew about this? And she's like, doesn't matter. I'm not the one who did this. I don't know where you got that envelope, but it doesn't matter. You're not going. And Lawton specifically points out, is it true that he's in hospice care? So who knows who this is about, wink, wink. But regardless, he gets very pissed off, and Waller says, look, we know where this Shea guy might be. We learned that he has a daughter over here in the States, over near Gotham. You're going to be going because we don't have the rest of the squad available, but I am sending in backup of this new guy. And then this new guy walks in, whose name is Will Evans, and he's going to be a trainee/rookie on the Suicide Squad. Turns out he's another sharpshooter, and Lawton's like, I don't want to do this. Screw this guy. I don't want to babysit him. And he's like, oh, I'm just as good as you, and you better not call me rookie. So they come to a standoff, and Evans headbutts Lawton in the face, to which point Lawton then pulls out his gun, and he's like threatening Evans with it, and Waller's like, hey, you still got a bomb in your neck, I'll blow you up. And he's like, this guy doesn't have any training, and you need me on this mission, so I'm willing to bet I could kill this guy and I'd still be going on the mission. And he doesn't push his luck, but he does fire the gun right next to the guy's head and walks out. So Waller tells him, you know, be on your best behavior, it's the only way you're going to be on Task Force X is if this goes off without a hitch. So we get some more background information from some handler named Olivia. I don't know who she is, but she's here. And she's basically saying, yeah, we've got intel. We're going to wait until she comes out at night. That's going to be our best option. We can't do this in the daytime, blah, blah, blah. And they basically say, all right, we think that she may know something because they're not going to let her get taken alive otherwise. So we see that the whole plan is that they park a truck, then pretend like, oh no, we just got lost. Where can we turn around at? The one guy, Evans, his mask, like Deadshot's got the one bullseye like over to the left. His is dead center in the middle. He looks like a Cyclops. It's weird, but regardless, they get up onto their respective roofs and they're like, all right, we don't know who here is on the payroll, who here is just an employee, so we're going to be using tranq darts on everybody. It's going to go down without a hitch. And we see that the car with the young girls coming up, they start shooting all the people around with tranq darts, and then all of a sudden there's a massive explosion outside. Everything goes to chaos. Gunshots are flying everywhere. Evans is like, what the hell is this? Lawton, what happened on your side? Now, earlier on, Lawton's body cam went dead, and all of a sudden, he wasn't responding to calls. So Evans is like, all right, well, screw this, change of plans. So he starts rushing in, full guns a-blazing, just shooting everybody around. And Olivia's there like, this isn't the plan. Lawton, where are you? What's going on? We cut over to his rooftop. He's not there. We see that he's on a motorcycle well outside of Gotham, and he's like, I'm not scared to death. I don't care if I see tomorrow, but right now I'm terrified because my past has come back. And as he makes his way down to some manor, he's just pleading with whatever deity, saying like, please, I want to be the one who does it. Let me be the one that kills my father. So we did get backstory back in like the Villains Month issue that Deadshot had both of his parents killed via just drug gang related violence. I guess that was a lie. I guess we're rechanging his origin. So now his dad was alive and he's in hospice care and he wants to be the one who kills him. Interesting hook. I don't know what this Will Evans stuff is going to be about, but you know, he's there. Yeah, beyond that, it is solid enough start. I'd say like a 7.5. It's good. The second half, the Katana half of this, is written by Mike Barr, art by Diogenes Neves. We open in Markovia, where there is the Cult of Cobra. I don't know if they've got a better name. I don't know what their leader's name is, but regardless, they're ushering in the age of chaos called Kali Yuga, and they're saying it will be the age of Cobra. And as everybody in the Cobra cult is cheering. We see that the leader has a Cobra wife that he goes up and makes out with because they're like, yes, our cult, they will obey us and us alone. So then we cut over to Katana, who's flying into Markovian airspace. I guess she heard about the Cobra stuff. She'd been sent on a mission, not by the Suicide Squad, to be fair. It is by Justice League. She is working with the League, which is in continuity, so I don't know why it's Suicide Squad book, but regardless, as she flies into the airspace, she's like, I don't know what's special about this country, it's not important, but for some reason it's being invaded, and I'm here on, like, a rescue mission. So she gets shot down out of the sky by a rocket, and she manages to walk away from it. We see that it's Cobra people are the ones that shot her down, so they start firing on the ship. She immediately jumps out and uses her katana to kill everybody around. Completely what you would expect, until there's finally one left, and she basically says, like, go, scurry away. And so they run away. We see that Katana makes her way to this big estate of Dr. Jace, and a couple of kids see her, and she's like, wow, this lady just took out all those Cobra people. She'll be the one to save us. Quick, let's go get help, and let's see what we can do. So Katana breaks into Jace's house. Jace throws a pot at her, and she's like, that wasn't wise. I'm here to help you. Don't attack me anymore. And she's like, oh, well, who are you with? Who's all that? And she's like, I'm with the Justice League, but I'm on my own, and like my communicator got smashed in the crash along with my jet. So if you got any way out of here, I'd love to know it. And she's like, not really. And he's like, all right, well, we'll figure out something. We see that Jace, apparently the reason she's so important is she's a massive, like, she's got all this science stuff, all these notes, and she's so far ahead in the field of science that she's suggested that science and magic are actually the same thing, just two sides of the same coin. And she's like, look, you may not understand my work, young lady. And then Katana pulls out her Soul Taker sword, and she's like, check it out. It's pretty much what you're saying right there. So at that point, she starts packing up her notes, all of her books, makes her way out of the house, and they are confronted not by Cobra agents, but by all the people of Markovia that were in the area. And everyone's just like, if you're leaving the country, take us too. This place sucks. We're all going down with the Cobra cult. You got to help us. And like, you know, there's sick people, there's children, there's a pregnant woman, there's a woman who just gave birth saying, please take my baby. And Katana's like, shut up. I can't help all of you, but like, fine, okay. I'll do the Seven Samurai thing. I'll help you out, but you got to like follow my orders implicitly. We then see that the one Cobra agent that ran away reports back to Cobra leader lady, and she kills the agent for delivering the bad news that Katana got away. So at that point, we go back to the people. They're loading up gas containers onto the ship that Katana crashed down in. And Jace is trying to repair the communicator. It's not going to work as a communicator to call the JLA, but it will work as a remote control for the ship. There's a cat. I don't know if the cat's going to come back in, but they specifically point out that this cat is hanging around. So at that point, one of the guys points forward and says, Katana, hey, soldiers are here. We got to launch our plan. So they're coming in, full tank, full armory, everything else. Katana launches the ship up into the air with the remote control. And immediately the Cobra people are like, all right, fire on it. It's a craft. Let's take it down. But then the Cobra lady's like, wait a minute, hold on. That's way too easy. And of course, being loaded up with gas canisters, it causes a huge, massive explosion, takes out pretty much all the ground troops of the Cobra cult, and the remaining farmers and lay people of Markovia come in to attack and take out the rest. So it comes down to a battle between Katana and the Cobra lady. And, you know, it's a standoff. It's a whole thing. As they continue to fight against each other, we see that Katana temporarily loses her sword, goes back to get it. She's on the back foot in this whole fight. And as she gets knocked out by the Cobra lady, because one of the children is like offering to help, the same cat comes in and starts licking the blood off of Katana's mouth. Again, don't know if it's going to matter, but I feel like it will. We see that Dr. Jace is taken hostage by Cobra Lady. She calls down this aircraft that the Cobra people have, and she's beamed up aboard. Katana tries to catch up, but it's too late, and head Cobra leader guy does a hologram saying, people of Markovia, you screwed up. You attacked us. Bad news for you. So we're going to take down your entire town and everybody in it. Ta-ta. And that's the issue. Yeah, that one... Cobra's always a bit boring to me. It's not that it's inherently bad. I don't think that, any particular villain or anything like that is inherently bad. There's always a good story to be told, but it just kind of is like, yeah, okay, Cobra. Like, you don't have to do any extra backstory as long as you just say it's bad guys wearing snake gear. And that's a bit lazy to me. The Katana stuff also just feels a bit weird because it's a Suicide Squad book. I know Katana was in the movie. I remember that. But that doesn't mean that she's in the Suicide Squad here. It just feels like, oh yeah, we got to educate people about Katana because that last series was oof. So yeah, I'm gonna say this is probably just a flat 7. I don't think it's quite down to the 6.5. It still has potential, but like nobody could do a good Katana book, it seems. So here's hoping that the next issue will improve. Superman number 48, written by Luen Yang, art by Howard Porter and Ardian Syaf. So last issue was the Superman Wonder Woman issue, where I guess Superman was made quote-unquote mortal. This issue does not really explain what that means. Suffice to say, he's a bit more vulnerable than he already was. Question mark. So this issue picks up with a stand-in for the presidential debates, which 10 years ago I'm sure would have been going on. And we have a Mr. Wolfingham who talks about how tremendously super and amazing and business-oriented he is. I'm not gonna talk about that. Just know it's there. So we see that there is a guy out there named Kingslayer. He's above the place, and he seems to be ready to kill Mr. Wolfingham. We see that Steve Trevor, Argus agent, shows up, and he's like, hey, you're a piece of crap, Kingslayer. You are not even like a named villain. No one even cares about you. And he uses his, I guess, remote-controlled arrow to target Steve to get away, but then Clark jumps in from nowhere, tackles Steve out of the way, and says, whoa, geez, that could have hurt me considering that I'm now currently mortal and all that stuff. And then he just gets in a fight against Kingslayer, which immediately ends when Trevor uses some Argus tech, which is a remake of Diana's lasso, but instead of like magical mystical abilities to make them tell the truth, it just uses pain because American military. So he's like, oh, why are you gunning for Wolfingham? Like, who did all that? Blah, blah, blah. And Kingslayer's not answering the questions. He's managing to resist. Superman tells him, like, hey, this isn't cool. You need to turn that off. And Kingslayer, in the distraction, jumps through the skylight and seemingly like breaks 5 of his bones, and everyone starts scattering away during the debate. So Superman and Trevor jump down, and Superman's like, hold on, this isn't right. Something's weird about this whole situation. Why would Kingslayer do that? Unless this was always his intention. And he tells Trevor, like, we got to calm these people down now. Don't let anybody go near any exits. And Trevor's like, right on it. So a few minutes pass, and Trevor's like, yeah, okay, we searched the exits. There were bombs rigged at all of them. And as soon as the crowd would have started passing through there, they were going to get set off. So good call, Superman. And he's like, right, totally awesome. And Trevor's like, why did you come after a little guy like Kingslayer, though? Like, what's the big... He's like, no, I didn't. I came to see you. We got to talk. So we then cut over to Hoarder Root, who is talking to a man named the Puzzler. I don't remember the Puzzler, but apparently he's the guy who makes all of the bodies for Hoarder Root. And Hoarder has made a deal with him that in exchange for all that, he's going to make a puzzler bot body that his consciousness will be transferred over into. And Hoarder follows through. He does. However, it wasn't a transfer, it was a copy. So the robot body wakes up saying, it worked. And then the real body wakes up going, you failed. And then the real body gets so pissed off at Hoarder Root that Hoarder's just like, no, I did what I said I was going to do. Like, it's all data. It's in the robot's head. We just got to take care of the original body. Bang. And he's dead. So Puzzler's now in a robot body. We see that Steve Trevor's flying Superman back to Argus headquarters, or at least one of them. And Superman lays down his plan, saying that once the gods made him mortal, And because of some other thing that, frankly, I don't remember happening, that they said happened in Action Comics this month, he's decided that the only way to get his abilities back to absorb sunlight is to kill off the top layer of cells of his body via a kryptonite chemotherapy treatment. And Argus has all the kryptonite, so he has to get it from Steve. And Steve's like, that's dumb, but all right, let's do it. So they arrive at a place in Hawaii that's like underneath a volcano. And as they are going down to like the deep levels where all the stuff is kept, the Puzzler bot is also attacking. And I guess that Puzzler used to work at Argus and he designed this entire place. Again, I feel like I'm missing something, but Puzzler is a thing. So Superman and Steve start talking, and Steve's like, so, still dating Diana? And he's like, nope. And Steve is like, what? You, what? Oh, she dumped you, right? And Superman's like, no, I think I'm the one who called off. And he's like, what? So that's a whole thing. As they get down there, Superman's so impressed with the way Argus is set up, says that it's sweeter than the Batcave. We meet Etta Candy, who just says, hi, I'm Etta Candy. And then we get a big old container thing dropped, which opens up, and it's full to the brim of kryptonite. And Superman is immediately like down on the ground. He's like, oh God, I've made a mistake, but like, we got to keep going through with it. If this doesn't work, tell Diana that I've thought of her last. That was my dying thought, was her. And Steve's like, maybe, but you're going to live anyway, so don't worry about it. However, before they can load him up in here and get him fully kryptonited, Puzzler bot punches through a wall, starts causing chaos and all this stuff there. Turns out that Hoarder heard about the chemotherapy thing, and he's coming in to try to stop it, just in case it happens to work. So Puzzler's whole thing is he throws little, I hesitate to call them nanobots, but they're just little puzzle pieces. And they just latch onto things and I guess take them over. So Etta and Steve are fighting against Puzzler, and Superman's just down on the ground, just like, oh God, everything hurts. I hate this, but I gotta do it. It's important I make this work. So he's crawling towards the kryptonite containment field. Puzzler bot manages to jump over Steve and Etta and just be like, haha, well, I have to take you out, Superman. Steve comes in for the last minute save, and Superman's like, no, but like, it's working. You need to let me be in there. You need to cover for me, okay? And Steve's like, okay, if you say so. And Superman, his last page here is him climbing into the kryptonite containment thing and just sitting inside of it. And he's like, well, this sucks. And that's the issue. Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, this is the next part of Savage Dawn, the Vandal Savage story. You'd be remiss not to know that, because frankly, I don't know what this event is. They offhandedly mention in the beginning of this that, like, oh, all the stuff that happened with the Watchtower and like all that stuff, that was a few weeks ago. I thought this was all happening over the course of like 3 days, but like, no, okay, apparently weeks had passed and Vandal Savage just hasn't done anything in the meantime. Sure. It's a fine issue. There's an art switch in the middle where Howard Porter takes over. Howard Porter was the default artist on Justice League 3000, and he has a very particular style that it was weird to see here. I'm not saying it's a bad style, but it was weird to switch to. Beyond that, I mean, the story itself is fine for what it is, but I'm lost by whatever this event is. Like, is the whole point of the Savage Dawn storyline to get Superman his powers back? Is that like, oops, we shouldn't have taken them away and now we're just going to give them I don't feel like I have a good grasp on what this event is, and we're already like 4 issues deep into it. So yeah, that's my biggest complaint, I guess. Each individual issue is fine for what it is. It just doesn't feel like a larger narrative is being told. There's a disconnect here. So, yeah, I'm going to say this is I'll just say a flat 7. 6.5 is a bit too harsh for how, like, actually just enjoyable it did end up being, but it's not getting the 7.5, I'll say that much. Justice League of America number 7, written and art by Brian Hitch. So last issue, I don't know, it's just a bunch of... It's so many interconnecting plots that it's almost impossible to say. Superman got by Rao. Stuff was going on in the past with Green Lantern. Wonder Woman and Aquaman met up. That's about all it can give you. So this issue picks up with Batman, who's currently talking with Cyborg. He has one of the staffs from one of the Rao supporters, and he's like, Cyborg, take a look at this, analyze it for tech, like, what's going on with it? And he bounces some ideas as to, like, how we could possibly stop Rao, what would possibly work against Superman that we could use against Rao. And they say Red Sun, and they're like, nah, that's kind of his whole thing, so that probably wouldn't work. And then Cyborg's like, oh, gee, okay, pause everything. That big cathedral thing that's floating over Manhattan, turns out there's like 1,000 of those all out in space, each attached to a planet, and like billions of people linked to each cathedral. I see Rao is in the middle of some stones and is like absorbing energy or something, so that's a thing. And immediately Dr. Lady, who is from the previous issues, is like, oh, he's draining life. That must be what it is. Draining life to keep himself to be immortal, essentially. And they say, okay, well, how do we interrupt that feed? What do we do? And Dr. Lady brings up that, well, the guy that we were treating for this stuff, once we put him into defib, he snapped out of it. So we just got to do that to the entire planet. And they say, well, that's a problem. So then we cut over to Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Olympus has been reformed. It was previously shattered. And Aquaman's like, how'd you do that? And she's like, I am Olympus. And he's like, okay, what does that mean? And it's like, well, all of the gods bolted. Not because of the Rao thing specifically, but something's got them spooked where they don't want to hang out in Olympus anymore. Also, there was the parasite fight. You weren't invited to that, Aquaman. Ha ha ha. But regardless, now that all the gods are gone and I'm here in Olympus as the god of war still, I'm now the one who is all of Olympus. So I just had to focus on rebuilding it and everything's fine. Now let's go down and check the armory. So we go over to the Cathedral of Rao, where we see Rao is talking to some of his people, being like, okay, look, you guys should have found it by now. Where's it at? And they're like, oh, we've searched the whole world for it, and maybe it's not the right time. Maybe it's not. And they don't say what it is, but, you know, it's something that is important for him to spread his thing throughout reality. We see Cyborg, who is, again, hooked up into the cathedral still, is like, hold on, there's also a massive drain on the power system. And Batman's like, that's got to be Superman, because, like, even if Superman is weaker than Rao, to be able to hold Superman is a big task. So, we got to figure out something for that. And Cyborg's like, oh, you want to do a rescue? And Batman's like, no, distraction. So he says, all right, Viktor, boom to us to Metropolis. Here's the plan. And we don't find out what it is. We see Superman is in some level of a holding cell. He's held in place by like all this Kryptonian crystal looking stuff. And Rao's like, that you can't break it. Yeah, I don't even think I could break it. And I'm a god. And Superman's like, you're not a god. And he's like, I, by definition, am a god. Like, I'm Rao, you're God. And Superman just tears him down. He's like, no, you're just a dude who has like all this fancy tech stuff that allows you to like drain lives, to live longer and all that. You suck. You're not a real God. And he's like, excuse me, I have made this church that has healed all of your sick, has made them all great and whatever, and all I ask is for like a few days off of their lives in order to fuel myself. Like, I think that's a good deal. Don't you? And Superman's like, then tell them that. And see how many people still join your church. See who does that, because doing it your sneaky way here is not very godlike of you. And he's like, whatever, you suck. I brought peace to your world. If you want to bring all that death and suffering back into their lives, is that what you want your legacy to be? And Superman's just like, you make a point. So then we go back 250,000 years ago to Krypton, where Green Lantern and Old Rao have shown up at the Infinity Corporated building, and Green Lantern's like, this is a modern building. I don't know why it's here. I don't know how it's here, but it's here, and this is definitely from my time period. And as they make their way deeper in, they're like, oh, our Lord God will see you now. And this is like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. So as they make their way in, inside is current Rao, is modern Rao. And he's like, sup, I'm Rao. And Green Lantern's like, wait a minute, hold on. What is this? And he's like, yeah, hey, I'm from your time. Don't worry about it. My plans went awry in your modern age, so I had to wind it back. I came back to this period, and I'm just gonna do it again. I'm gonna start from here, and I'm gonna work it back up again. And Green Lantern's like, what? And the other Rao's like, okay, but like you sound like you're causing war. You want to do all this war stuff. My whole thing is peace. I want to cause peace. Can't we do that? And he's like, oh my God, you're so naive. 250,000 years ago, Jesus, man, yeah, no, you're crazy naive. And Green Lantern's like, well, I don't like this. I'm going to take you in. And he starts using his ring, but Rao has the willpower of a god, so he's immediately able to overcome the ring and just being like, look, I'm going to convert Krypton, I'm going to finish what I started, and then I'm going to go back to modern age, I'm going to deal with this. The only thing that's stopping him from killing previous Rao is that he doesn't know if he's branching a timeline or changing the current one, so he's got to wait until he finds that out. Wonder Woman goes through the armory of Ares, which is just full of tanks and guns and biological weapons, and she's like, anything that can be used to hurt people. There's a book of particularly nasty insults over there. You're free to check that out. But they make their way to the weapons of the gods, which are, Zeus's thunderbolt, Poseidon's trident, and all that stuff. And it's just like, all right, well, I've got Hades' helmet, which will make me invisible. I got Zeus's thunderbolt. I got a spear of who cares. And here you go. Here's Poseidon's trident, Aquaman. You're now god of the oceans. Meanwhile, in the Infinity Court building, everything is shaking around the Flash and going nuts. And the rocks are apparently saying they're here. We find out nothing more. We see that the cathedral is possibly locking in on the Infinity Court building, but we cut back over to Rao, who's like, seriously, Superman, we could save this world together. Okay, let me tell you what my real big plan, what my big thing here is. Kryptonians are awesome. They're amazing. Why, oh why, did the Kryptonians basically have to go extinct? Here's my thing that I wanted to have happen. I'm going to take Kryptonians and make them into my followers, and then, nobody can possibly stop me. Because my current followers, they have, a little bit of Kryptonian DNA in them, but, it's been essentially bred out of them. They're almost practically not Kryptonian anymore. They're just slightly stronger than normal people. But I've got a pure-blooded Kryptonian sitting right here in front of me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest the DNA out of all your cells, and I'm going to put it into all 7 to 8 billion people on Earth, and I'm going to turn them all into Kryptonians, and then I'm going to have my Kryptonian army. And Superman's like, that's dumb. You think that you can do that? As soon as I break out of this thing, I'm going to show you what I can do with just one of my powers. And he's like, all right, well, you're not going to break out of this thing. And then Superman starts flexing. He's like, all right, well, let's give it a shot. He goes, ah, and Rao's like, seriously, you can't break free. And he's like, I'm not trying to break free. I'm flying. And we see that immediately Rao goes pushed back to the back of a wall like a rocket taking off. And the cathedral lifts up from Manhattan into space and collides into the moon. And then it just explodes there. So this book has 3 more issues. I don't know what we're doing with them. It feels very much like a next issues where we wrap it up. Maybe next issues where we have the big fight and then an epilogue. But that third one, I don't know what we're doing with it. Yeah, it's not a bad book. It's a perfectly fine book. It's just the delays to it and the spacing in between. It's just a bit too much. I feel like I forget the plot every time it comes around. So independently, I think I'd say this is easily a 7.5. I like it. I like the widescreen action that Brian Hitch sells it on. But on the whole, I feel like this book is so inconsequential and completely removed from continuity that it just really doesn't matter at this point. So I'll still say 7.5, but just know it's better to read it all in trade rather than the week to week that it would have come out on. Superman, Lois and Clark, number 4, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Lee Weeks and Marco Santucci. So last issue, we had a little bit of the breakdown of Blanc getting out of his cell. I can't remember if that was revealed or if it was hinted at, but it's definitely revealed here. And then also stuff going on with Lois and John. So this picks up several years ago in Metropolis. Clark's basically narrating to us saying, we didn't go to Metropolis very often because, like, people might recognize us, and that's not something we really want to do, but we did it once for our anniversary. And as they were walking down the street, they say, oh, hey, here's this universe's Harley, who's a guy who's just playing the saxophone out on the street. He's blind, but Clark throws him some money, and he's like, oh, I recognize that voice anywhere. Thanks, Mr. Kent. And Lois is like, well, it's good to know that, like, your universe's counterpart also leaves money, so that's neat. As they make their way down the street further, we come across a tourist trap that is selling Superman and Batman, like, superhero t-shirts, and Lois is like, we have to get one for John. It's so cute. And he's like, that's not, my S is slightly different. And she's like, this is the only Superman he knows. We got to do it. Let's go ahead and buy it for him. So they do that. As they're walking down the street a little bit more, they're just reminiscing, saying, oh, it's our first trip away without John. It's nice that the neighbors could watch him. But then all of a sudden they panic and they go to hide over in a nearby storefront because down the street comes Jimmy Olsen along with a date of his. And they're like, oh my God, it's Jimmy. Oh, he looks so much younger here. He looks good too. Like, good on him. But they're like, all right, it's too risky to be out on the streets. Let's go back to the room. We'll get some room service and do all that. So as they make their way back up, Clark is just asking Lois, just like, oh yeah, I checked in on the Lex Luthor of this universe, and it's Lex. I know he's up to something, but I couldn't find anything on his computers or anything like that, but I'll get there. So they make their way back into the room, and they're just like, well, let's enjoy our anniversary. And Lois pulls out a box. Superman's like, I didn't know we were doing gifts. And she's like, nah, this is different from a gift. And as he opens it up, we find out it's the black suit. It's the one that we've seen Superman in this whole time. Turns out that she kind of faked being the Lois from this universe to get it out from Star Labs. And it's, durable, has all this tech or whatever in it. It's all whatever it is. And it's just a nice gift. And he's like, yeah, sometimes you're going to have to go out there and be Superman. It's best you have a durable costume to do it in. So we cut to now, and we see John and Lois are making their way downtown to go meet with Lois's publisher, the one that she met in the alley. And she's like, yeah, I need to check on her because Clark thinks that it's through this publisher that the Intergang people or whatever found me, so I need to check on her. And John's like, why are we here? What's going on? How's it? And Lois is like, we're checking in on a friend. Don't worry about it. And as they make their way back into the office, Lois goes back and finds a note on her desk that says, we have her, and a big knife is drawn through it. So clearly she ain't doing too hot. However, while John is waiting out in the waiting room, he comes across a newspaper. And the newspaper is of the Daily Planet saying, Superman's identity revealed. It's Clark Kent. And John's like, wait, hold on, what? So he rips off the front page, and he shoves it in his pocket. And the mom's like, okay, put up your hood. We're sneaking out of here. Like, keep quiet. Do exactly what I say. And as they make their way out, like, Lois is in a disguise. She's making her way through. And then suddenly this guy comes up and says, excuse me, can you direct me over to this specific building? And Lois looks up and is like, in my universe, at least, that dude is in charge of Intergang. That's Bruno Mannheim. Oh God, dear, like everything's going wrong. And she's like, sorry, no habla inglés, don't know where building is, whatever. And he's like, don't worry about it, no problem. By the way, when did you say your name was? And she's like, I didn't. And she's got her hand in her purse on a gun at this point. She's like, I don't want to do this, man. And he's like, oh, okay, well, fair enough, I gotta go. So Lois pushes past with John, and she's like, crap, this was a trap. They were just waiting to see who showed up inside the office. Oh God, we're screwed. So Bruno looks back as they're walking away and says, gotcha. Meanwhile, over in the Himalayas, in Superman's new base or whatever, he is buried under a pile of rubble, and he's like, okay, on this earth, I'm a little bit weaker than I usually am. I don't know why that is yet. I'm still working it out, but like, yes, I am susceptible to certain surprise attacks, but that just means I got to work harder. And he punches through the rubble, and he's trying to call Kelex, the AI, and Blanc telepathically is just like, oh my God, you named your AI? That's hilarious. And he says, Blanc, how'd you get out of your cell? And he's like, well, you had me locked up pretty good for many years. You kept on blasting me with like white noise and pop hits and all the stuff to distract me so I couldn't like focus on telepathy. But then you brought in Hank Henshaw here. And I don't know what's special about Hank Henshaw here, but he really helped me focus through. So Blanc starts using rocks and anything else around the fortress to start attacking Superman. And Hank is just kind of out of it. He's just in the back just going like, I'm Hank, what? And Blanc is like, whatever, ignore him. We don't need him. Like, I am an artiste and my medium is death. So he starts attacking Superman using his telekinetic ability to throw stuff and throw him against walls. We see Hank also waves his hand at one point and I guess brings down the statue of... I'm blanking on there. Jor-El and Kara, or Lara. Kara's Supergirl. Yeah, Lara. And even Superman's like, was that Hank? Is that his powers? Is he doing something, or is that Blanc? I really can't tell. But then Blanc is finally like, I'm looking into your mind, and I see a woman, and I see a young boy. And after I kill you, Superman, I'm going to kill them next. And he just blasts Superman out through the mountains, through the Himalayas, and just being like, yep, all right, this is it. I usually exaggerate my skills or whatever, but I am literally moving mountains here. And then he tells Hank, all right, how do we get to California? And then the very last page is the very last page we've been getting. Someone out in space is looking for the Oblivion Stone. Scans indicate it was somewhere on Europa, the sixth moon of Jupiter. But now it ain't, and now it's on Earth. So she's going to Earth. I am hesitant to think we're ever going to get the end of that story because I vaguely remember that there's an Action Comics run by Dan Jurgens much later on, like 5-10 years later, that had that as a backup story. That had like the Oblivion Stone thing going on there. I don't know if that was just rehashing it or if it was literally the end of that story, but I'm going to be so disappointed if we don't actually get an end to the Oblivion Stone stuff. Yeah, no, this is a fine issue. Honestly, my favorite bits of these issues are the first part. It's the part of showing them how they're adjusting into their life in this new universe, having to keep things on the down low, little things that you wouldn't expect to be a problem becoming problems. So tiny things like that. I like the way they flesh that out. As for the Intergang and the blank stuff, it's fine. It's perfectly normal Superman, Lois stuff. I'm happy to have it for the characters. I'm more interested in John's story, but that's only because I know where he ends up. So curious to see how he gets there. But yeah, it's a very solid, I'd say 7.5. I hesitate to go to the 8 just because there have been better issues than this one so far, but I'm still into it. I'm still very much enjoying this book. Grayson number 16, written by Tim Seeley and Tom King, art by Mikel Janin. So we just got done with a bunch of Robin War stuff, but before that, we had the revelation that Spiral was actually split from Leviathan or something. Regardless, Grayson realized all this and says, okay, Agent 1, Tony the Tiger, we got to take him down. So we open up with secret agent guy in France. We don't see their face, but we are led to believe that it is Grayson because they're oh so suave. They've got somebody trapped in the trunk of a car, and they are asking for the password to get into this super secret club place. And as they get in, they notice a bunch of faces. They walk up to the bar, and they're saying like, oh, bartender, surprise me. And turns out the bartender is actually Grayson. The secret spy guy is random spy number who cares of Spiral. And so Grayson kicks him in the face and says like, hey, go back to Helena, tell her that I know everything all about how AutoNet set up Spiral to create more violence and yada, 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 and that I'm going to be taking down every single agent in Spiral. And so he runs out. We see Tony is working with him, and I don't know if I've ever cleared this up beforehand. He's Agent 1, the Tiger. He's calling him Tony the Tiger. he hates it. So regardless, as he gets in, he's like, oh yeah, I got the car. There's somebody in the trunk we should probably deal with, but whatever. And they start driving through the city. Turns out that guy was Agent 7. There's a running joke in this issue how every time that they beat down an agent, it's a number lower than Grayson. And he's like, oh, come on, how am I still Agent 37? I should be ranked much higher than that. We then see 5 days later, they're driving the same car through Italy. There's a little red button that activates a parachute, and Tiger says, do not press that button. But Grayson's like, I think it's about time we press it, because they are careening over cliffs in this little red sports car. And Grayson's like, I drove with Batman, and that man had no regard for his own safety. And yet this is the one point where, like, I kind of wish I was still wearing the yellow pixie shorts, if you catch my drift. So as the car is about to go off the cliff and there's some skiers agents that are chasing after them, they press the red button. It causes it to stop suddenly, and the other agents go crashing down into the ravine. So that's Agents 5 and 19. And we just get an entire montage of Grayson singing his own theme music as the agents go down one by one. And it's just a general fight, all things considered. And it's set up that you can tell it's supposed to look like a Bond intro sequence. Like, it's got all like the circles and secret agent stuff and all that other stuff. Regardless, we cut over to Helena, who's sitting there talking to, God, I can never remember her name, Dr. Netz, but like, which one is she? I think Luca? Could be wrong. Helena's just like, how many of my agents have been taken out? And Luca's just like, 18. But like, don't worry, we sent a whole bunch more, and they're definitely going to be stopped here. And then she gets a call, and she's like, okay, we might have more than 18 now, but don't worry, we'll figure this out. And Helena's like, no, I don't think we will. I'm going to have to call out the big guns here. So we see Helena approach it. Well, first, I guess I should say, Grayson and Agent 1 reach finally a breaking point where they're like, okay, we've managed to beat like more than half of the agents back, and should we call it? Like, are you good to go? And Grayson's like, no, all right, let's do it. Let's keep going. So they push on. We then cut over to Helena, who calls a meeting with a bunch of secret agents from different groups and whatever else like that. And she's like, look, I'm being torn apart here. My own agents have gone rogue. I need you guys to step in and help me. And if you don't, I've got bribery and blackmail and all the fun stuff. So what's it going to be? And we get 7 different people, most of which I don't know. The ones I know, we have Frankenstein from Shade, we have Bronze Tiger, we have Grifter, and we have King Faraday, which I don't even know what King Faraday does, but he was in that Future's End book. And then we also have Keshi, Tao, and Gwison. They're all agreeing to help. So we cut down to Portugal, where Tiger is getting word from one of his contacts inside Spiral that Helena has done this. She's reached out. She started to get more help. The entire weight of the secret agent community is now crashing down upon them. And Grayson's like, all right, well, if we have an army of secret agents coming after us, we just have to meet it with our own army. And I know a guy. And we cut over to Checkmate headquarters, where Grayson is like, look, the last time we met, you said that I didn't know who I was. Now I know. I'm the guy who's going to give you Spiral. And we see it's Maxwell Lord that they're meeting up with, and they shake hands. So all of Checkmate is now working against Spiral. I don't remember when that was. Like, when did Grayson meet Maxwell Lord? I don't remember that at all. I'm sure it happened. They clearly make it sound like it was a thing, but I have no recollection of that at all. So it's okay. I want to like this issue. I really do. I like the comedy beats to it. The entire sequence of like the James Bond opening, it all sounds like fun, and it is fun. It is a fun time reading the issue, but I feel like this book is a bit too decompressed for me, and that's I have very lenient, very, very lenient policies when it comes to decompression. By all means, take as long as you need to tell your story. But this issue, especially after coming off of the Robin War stuff, I just feel like I'm not there's no forward momentum. There's no progress here. And there is stuff happening. To be clear, we do see stuff happening, them beating back all the agents and all that. But I just feel like this story has been going on forever. And I know it's not their fault with the Robin War stuff, but it just feels so dragged out. And I think another part of it is that I'm not entirely clear as to what the problem is. Like, yes, Spiral was founded under questionable means, like by a questionable person, but that they still haven't convinced me that like it's still a problem, that this is something that like Spiral is still doing evil things. So I don't know. I want to like this book. And I don't think this issue is a complete failure, but it's a symptom of a larger problem. So I'm going to say this one is 6.5. It's just shy of good in my eyes, but like it has so many positive elements that if you're enjoying the book and like you are reading this all at once here and skipping over Robin War it probably works a lot better. But as I'm reading it, it's just not quite keeping up the pace I need it to be. Not quite my tempo. Omega Men number 8, written by Tom King, art by Barnaby Bagenda. So last issue we had everyone getting off planet, all the Omega Men survived, and they're going to Vorl because that's where the secrets to the Omega Men lie, or at least that's what they're telling Kyle. This issue we open up and it is basically just focused on Vorl. We open up in the past where Scraps is looking up at the sky with her mother. It seems like it's a beautiful planet, blue, green, covered in farmland. And she's like, why is the sky yellow? And the mom's like, that's our shield. Don't worry about it, because the shield will always protect us. May Omega bless it. And then we cut to nowadays, where shield is still up, but they use the key of Alpha, which was obviously the whole big MacGuffin that they had before. They drop it into the shield, and that deactivates it. And as they land down on the planet, it's dead. It's barren. It is gone. We cut to before. We see that the Citadel, a bunch of people in there, are discussing the Kryptonian dilemma, which I don't know if it's particularly pointed out well in this issue, but it eventually is said that it's about the destruction of planets. It's about the fact that like planets tend to explode unless you got this stellarium stuff, and if you mine for it, you also like destroy the planet. So it's a bit of a catch-22 there. So they're saying that people need this, and so we're trying to figure out a way to get that to the Citadel and all that. We see that the Viceroy speaks up, and he's like, look, I got a plan. We get into Vorl, and we mine there because of their shield. Nobody is paying attention to Vorl. They are on the outskirts. We can do whatever we want to them. And everyone's like, bro, they've had a shield for like 1,000 years. They're not just going to open it up so we can destroy their planet. And that's where the Viceroy is like, you leave that to me. So cut back to now. Kyle's still got his gun trained on Callista, who's just like, all right, give me answers. What's up? What's going on? Why do you need me? And why is Vorl important? And they basically say, we need you because you left your ring, your Green Lantern ring, with the Viceroy. And that idiot is probably wearing it. We need you to use your Green Lantern power stuff to turn that ring into a bomb. And we need you to make it explode. And I ain't talking big enough to kill just the Viceroy. I'm talking big enough to kill everybody in the vicinity of the Viceroy, because that's the only way we're going to take down the Citadel. And all this while, we see Scraps is in this massive graveyard, just tons of tombstones, and she's just crying over a couple of them. And Doc is there to comfort her and try to make her feel okay. And Kyle's like disgusted by the idea that he would use his powers like that. And Callista's like, no, that's good. That's the first response. Of course you'd be disgusted. That's why we need you to see Vorl. We need you to see what they did, and we're gonna radicalize you because of it. So we cut to then. We see that Tigor has approached his father after he was supposed to be a suicide bomber to take out the Viceroy. His father is disgraced that his son has returned here, but Tigor comes up and slits his father's throat. and takes the necklace from around his neck that is in the shape of Omega. Turns out it is if the other one's the key of Alpha, this is the key of Omega. And he returns to the Viceroy and hands it off to him, saying like, oh, here it is, I took it. And this is, while the key of Alpha opens up the shield to Vural, so does the key of Omega. So we see that using this, he's turned the entirety of the planet into not only a Stellarium mine, but a graveyard. Every Vural citizen is dead. And we see how that happened is they essentially formed a army of robots because committing genocide is kind of hard to convince your normal average soldiers to do. So they made an army of robots called the Defense Operations Cybertronics, or DOC robots, to go in and kill every last Vural citizen that they could possibly find. And they succeeded. They did it. They absolutely murdered all of them. 7 billion lives were extinguished. And Kyle's like, Jesus Christ, man. Tigor speaks up and he's like, is that enough? 7 billion, or do we have to get up to 8 billion for you to finally jump in and help us out here? And Kyle's like, Tigor, I swear to God, if you speak one more time, I'm going to shut you up myself. And Tigor just calls him out like, swear to God, huh? What's your God done for you lately? And Kyle just punches him in the face. And Kyle goes on this whole thing of like, you've got these dueling gods, the Alpha and the Omega. My God, the Christian God, is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And yes, I'm pissed off because in my view, my God let this happen. It let this happen under my watch, under something that I could have done to stop this, to make things right. So yeah, this is all my God's fault, but it's also mine as well. And we see just snapshots, horrible, disgusting snapshots of all these dead Vural citizens across the planet, and the Viceroy's walking through them, and he's like, oh, this is too much. The Citadel is for civilizations, for civilized people. This is not civilized. And he talks to one remaining dock robot, and he says, the mission is done. We've done it. Let's not make this any worse than it had to have been. Your job now is to give all of these Vural citizens proper burials. You are to treat them all as if they were your family. Anybody from Vural is now your family. And Doc says, yes, all right, I accept that offer. So they don't put too much of a bow on it, but they explain that's why Doc is now on the side of Scraps. He's caring for her. We see Kalista and Kyle looking out over the city, and he's basically like, look, if I do this, I'm going to have to break every oath I've ever made. Like, this is absolutely too much. And they have just a mild little back and forth, and Kyle's like, look, I know this was all a game to you, that you never actually like loved me or anything, but like, you know me, I did feel those things. And Kalista's like, no, I felt them. Like, I do still love you in some way, but like, you got to understand, you have no idea what you're capable of. And finally, the last thing we see in the before section is Doc going through the wreckage of the city with a bulldozer, just moving bodies, pushing them out of the way, when he hears a small voice calling out for her mommy, and it's Scraps, and Scraps is saying, Mommy, just for a second, I saw the real sky. It wasn't yellow anymore. And Doc comforts Scraps. So, damn, son. I think next issue is the issue that's like my number one favorite, if I remember correctly, but this issue is still just, it's a great little thing to say, like, what made these people so awful? Like, what makes the Omega Men necessary is as like a cause, as a force here, and what's going to bring Kyle to their side. And it works. It's solid. Like, to genocide an entire planet for the sake of, you make the argument of like utilitarianism of like, oh, we killed 7 billion to save trillions, but like, come on. Yeah, no, I'm gonna say this one's an 8.5. It's a hard hitting one. It really works. It's super solid here. I think I like the next issue more, so I'm hesitant to like bump it up to a 9 or anything like that, but this is still absolutely solid storytelling. Love it. So, yeah. Deathstroke number 14, written by James Bonny, art by Tyler Kirkham. So, last couple issues we were dealing with the Suicide Squad stuff, introduced Snakebite. None of that matters. Absolutely none of it. The only thing you need to know is Rose is still missing, and that's what we're focused on here. So we open up with Deathstroke saying that on Rose's 5th birthday, he took her down to the Skid Row area of town and like showed her how depraved and like horrific humanity can be. And like he kept her safe, but someone was still grabbing for her. And he's like, I had to toughen her up. I had to let her know that like the world sucks. Then we cut to LexCorp headquarters where Deathstroke's getting tased by like 15 security officers all at once, and he drops down to the ground. Security officers like, hey, we got Deathstroke. What do we do with this guy? And we see Deathstroke has his own guy behind the chair. It's Viktor from before. He's like, Deathstroke, you good? Yeah, you're down. What is going on there? And over on Lex's side, we see Mercy Graves is running ops from behind the computer, and it's just like, hey, that's a Deathstroke. Do not underestimate him. We're sending reinforcements now. And the guard's like, don't even worry about it. He's down for the count. But of course, Deathstroke is immediately back up and starts kicking the ever-loving piss out of all these security guards. And Mercy's like, damn, he's good. So we cut to earlier, specifically like an hour earlier, and Viktor is breaking it all down for Deathstroke, saying, okay, Suicide Squad thing was a bust. The Bell Reef, like, that didn't make any sense. But I got a lead that Rose, for whatever reason, is in a LexCorp building, the headquarters in Metropolis. I've got a DNA tracker that is locked to her. You can follow that in. It's going to find her dead or alive. So no matter what, we will find her in there. And we see there is a big red dot flashing. So they're going in. And Deathstroke, as he's running down the halls, is like, all right, well, I hit the security guards, but like no one else is attacking me. So this seems like a trap. And Viktor's like, you want to quit? And he's like, no, I'm going to follow the flashing red dot. It says it's only like 150 meters ahead. So at that point, Lex's voice pops over the intercom saying, hey, Deathstroke, what are you doing in my building? I appreciate that you're a strategist. You've got all this stuff there, but you're clumsy right now, just barging in here. So what's warranting that? What's up? And he's like, I'll tell you when we're face to face, Lex. So Lex sends out a bunch of robots. He's like, oh yes, this is the newest iteration. And Deathstroke just immediately takes them all out. And he's like, well, all right, I was a bit disappointed. Fair enough. And that's when Mercy shows up. And Lex is like, this is Mercy Graves, my assistant bodyguard. And Mercy like disarms Deathstroke and kicks him into a wall enough that like a big solid steel door opens up when he accidentally hits a button. And Lex then, like, I'm going to quote unquote Lex, comes out in a giant power suit of armor. Turns out though, it's not actually Lex. Lex made a copy of his mind / whatever into an AI, and that is what has been talking to Deathstroke and is now inside of this robot, and Mercy just activated it. Where is Lex? They just say he's indisposed. They just say he's gone doing whatever else. So either way, the giant Lex robot comes out and just being like, all right, well, I'm going to beat you up now, Deathstroke. And as they're fighting, like, he's throwing punches. He's managing to get some blood out from Deathstroke's mask. And he does like, he's monologuing the whole time saying like, oh, I'm not beating you up because like you broke in or anything like that. I consider you a threat. I'm beating you up because I have a reputation to uphold. If we let you come in and get as deep as you want, like that implies our security is a joke. So I got to take you out here. It's part of the whole thing. And Deathstroke tries to throw in like a grenade thinking like, yeah, that ought to do it. But nope. The Lexbot has some sort of force field around it, and it doesn't do anything at all. Viktor's watching the tape. He's like, get out of there, man. We ain't winning this one. From some other room, we see Rose is also watching the fight on TV screen. And there's some shadowy figure wearing a cowboy hat that's very clearly in the silhouette. Is like, you have that same courage inside of you, but you need to watch what happens to your father right up to the end. Are you going to do that? And Rose is like, okay, yeah, I will. So the fight continues on. Lex fires off some proton blasts at Deathstroke, which give out the floor and causes him to fall down underneath. And honestly, like that's pretty much where the issue leaves off. He falls down into the bottom floor. The only thing that we reveal is that he fell into a lab room where a bunch of Bizarros get activated. You remember how Lex made the original Bizarro in Forever Evil? Well, he's got at least 3 more, and they all look exactly the same. So, yeah. It's okay. It's good. It's fine. I don't know. I'm I like the issue itself, but it's like, it's this feeling I've been having just across the DC YOU. Like, it feels so aimless. It feels so like, what are we doing? Why are we low? It's a fun enough issue, fine, sure, whatever. But what's the end game here? Like, what are we building? It just feels like we're padding and we're wasting time and trying to just get to the Rebirth era as slowly as possible here. And I just, as much as I think, okay, fine, Rose is in this building or like something's going on here, like the fact that we did a whole Suicide Squad Belle Reve thing where we introduced Snakebite, now we're getting a Deathstroke versus a bunch of Bizarros. I don't feel like there's a guiding principle going on in this arc except for let's make Deathstroke fight some fun things. And that's fine for a couple issues, but it wears out its welcome fast if you don't do anything with it. So here's hoping the next issue does something with it. I'm feeling a bit fatigued. So I'm going to say this is I'll say a 7. The art's very good. The art is top tier stuff, but everything else I'm a bit worn out on. We Are Robin number 8, written by Lee Bermejo, art by Jorge Corona and Rob Haynes. So Robin War happened, effectively can be ignored. The only things you need to know are the Robin laws have been repealed and Duke still doesn't know where his parents are. So this issue picks up with a dude. I know we get his name later on, but it's not memorable here. He goes by Smiley at one point, but he's a guy who's got this grin on his face. He's in a juvie center, and he's currently in the middle of a fight with one of the other guys for cheating at poker. And his whole thing was like, yeah, a couple months ago, I beat down that Thomas kid in the playground. And I vaguely remember that from like issue 1, but I don't remember him having this grin on his face the whole time. Regardless, turns out that he has a thing called Mobius syndrome, which basically makes it so that his face cannot emote. And so his parents got him forcibly plastic surgery, which has now plastered a fake smile on his face for the rest of his life. And he's absolutely psychotic. He's like biting other inmates right here. So eventually the guards separate them and they're just like, Jesus, man, what is wrong with you? Like, don't you know what today is? And he's like, oh, it's just a poker game. Sorry, it got out of hand. Isn't that right? And the other guy's like, yeah, just a poker game. But like, yeah, I'm going to pay you back for that. So he gets returned to his cell and it turns out they're processing him out today. They're just like, look, it was going to be in a few hours, but like, screw that, man. We want you out of here. Pack up your stuff till we can leave. And he's talking to his roommate and the roommate's like, look, you weren't a great roommate or bunkmate, cellmate, whatever it is. You weren't a good cellmate. I'm not going to really miss you that much, but I'm really not going to miss him. And we see that on Smiley's wall is just tons of pictures of the Joker. And he's like, oh, you just don't get it. He's the only one who really has it figured out. So we cut back over to Duke. Duke's in the hospital. And he's just sitting there waiting to hear back. He's like, look, is there anybody here by the name of Thomas? Anyone who's swung by, anybody at all? And they're like, no, we had a really old guy, but that's not who you're looking for. And he's like, right, sorry. So as Duke goes to leave, this one guy starts getting really agitated, saying that the people who brought him here didn't let him finish his burrito. And he starts getting violent, to which point Duke just comes in and like drops him. Not violently, but enough to control the situation. And he's like, hey man, I get it. When people take my stuff, I get pissed off too. How about I go out, I buy us both burritos and we can have it? And the guy's like calming down, he's fine. And as he's being taken back to his room, one of the orderlies is like, did you work in a hospital? Like, that was great, the escalation. He's like, no, that's part of my other job. And he's like, well, we could use you in a hospital, even if it's just a psychiatric hospital, because like everything is overrun after the Joker attacks. And Duke all of a sudden has a light bulb moment of like, oh crap, I forgot psychiatric hospitals even existed. And so he runs off down the street to go check on one. We then see Rico, who is coming back from band practice, and she's drafting and redrafting a text to Duke until she's stopped by the cops because she's wearing like a red jacket, and that triggers one of the cops to say like, hey, Robin laws, you go, let me check your stuff. And the other cop's like, dude, we're done with that. We don't got to keep going with that. We then see there is a strange man hidden in shadows who calls one of the officers and says, officer, I think I saw somebody robbing that convenience store over there. You should go check on it. And so the cops leave Rico alone as the other man disappears. We then cut to, I think that was yesterday. We then cut to the night before, where there's a couple making out in the middle of Gotham Park, and wouldn't you know it, it's middle of the night, or at least evening, and a couple of muggers come out, and they're like, oh, you're going to give us your purse and your wallet and all that stuff. And then in comes Andre, who is not dressed in Robin colors. He's got his own thing going on now, and he just comes in, it's just like, oh, I'm going to beat the crap out of, I'm going to put you guys in coffins. And there's again a man who is on a bench just like watching this happen from across the park. We then go to Izzy the night before that, or sorry, 2 nights after. It's all throughout the week. That's all you need to know. It doesn't matter. Izzy, she comes home after a long shift to the hospital. Her mom has set up a little, I don't want to call it a shrine, memorial, whatever you want to call it, to her brother. And as she comes home being like, oh man, I've got so much homework to do, but I can barely keep my eyes open. The mom's like, well, you better do it. You're at risk of getting expelled. You're such an awful daughter. My baby boy is lost. Now you're giving me problems too. And Izzy just runs out crying as a man in the hallway watches it happen. We then cut to Dax, who is trying to come up with a Batman-sized grappling hook, but he's like, this is impossible. This guy's got some serious tech. And he's in his garage, and then there's a knock, knock, knock at the door. When he finally goes to check and tells the guy, buzz off or closed, he's like, oh, well, you know, I saw the lights on. I thought I'd come and check. And by the way, you need to shrink the air compressor. Everything else will click into place after that. And then he walks off, and Dax is like, I'm sorry, hold on, what? So back to today, we see the kid being brought home. So I'm just going to keep calling him Smiley until they give me a better name. It says Johnny, but I'm not going to remember that. Johnny Bender, I think. Smiley's like sitting there in the car with his dad. His dad's on Bluetooth, just talking to someone else. And finally, when he ends a call, Smiley's like, so you going to talk to me, or are we just doing the silent treatment? And he's like, you've messed up significantly. And what, you think we're just going to welcome you back in? Like, the world doesn't resolve around you. So they get back into their house. We see that the dad has to go off and make some calls because his whole day was thrown out of whack having to pick up Smiley earlier. And as he gets in, he's asking where his sister is. And the mom is like, your sister's staying at someone else's house until we can figure out, like, what's up with you. Like, if you can prove that you're going to get your act together, then maybe we can start talking about it, but we're not going to coddle you anymore. We're not going to like give you preferential treatment. Like, you're going to do your own cooking and cleaning. You're going to look for a job. And if you steal from your sister ever again, and immediately Smiley's like, well, you should just let me at juvie. Like, clearly you guys don't want me here. And the dad snaps at him saying like, no, you don't. You're being dramatic. You don't get to say that sort of stuff, like, especially after what you did. Why are you always the victim? And then Smiley just goes nuts. He starts like throwing stuff. He grabs his mom's phone and like throws it against the TV. And he's like, you guys did this to me. You guys ruined my life by forcing me to get that goddamn plastic surgery just because what? I couldn't be the beautiful, perfect son that you were looking for this whole time. And the dad like grabs a liquor bottle. He's ready to smash it. And he's like, oh yeah, how many times are we going to hear that story? Yeah, you're going to use that as your excuse for the rest of your life as to why you're a degenerate. And he basically just storms up to his room, and his parents are like, nah, screw that. You're not welcome in this house after tonight. Get out of here. We never want you back here again. So he goes up into his room. We see he's got a bunch of Joker merch all over the walls. He's super into it. And he reaches up into his vent and he grabs a gun. So we go back to Duke, who goes to a psychiatric hospital. They are completely overwhelmed. They don't have like any records, but they're like, you're welcome to look around, see if you recognize them. But like, we don't have anybody under the name of Thomas here. And as he makes his way down, he sees his dad and his mom. They're in the bed, and his dad is just, they've got the grins plastered on. They're laughing to themselves. And it's like, yeah, this is all just leftover Joker toxin stuff. It's hard to reverse. It's really difficult to do. But the dad turns to Duke, and Duke's like, oh, it's me. And he's like, oh, my wife is sick, doctor. Wait, are you a doctor? And he's like laughing throughout the whole thing. And this sequence is intercut with what's going on with Smiley, but I'll finish off Duke's stuff. He's trying to get his dad to be like, look, don't you recognize me? Don't you? And the dad's just repeating. The mom's not saying anything. And the doctor comes back being like, yeah, these two have been here for about 3 weeks now. And he's been repeating the same stuff, saying like, my wife is sick. We haven't gotten anything out of the mom. It's difficult. We're going to do our best. And Duke just like gets down in front of them. It's just like, it's okay. I'm here now. Meanwhile, on the Smiley side, which is visually mirroring everything that Duke is doing, Smiley goes into the bathroom. He puts on some Joker-style lipstick around his mask. He gets pale face, a purple jacket, and he goes downstairs with his gun, and he just straight up murders his parents. So, for kids. No, I appreciate now that Robin War is done, we feel like we're doing something bold here. I like that the group is not in a good place, so we're not, it's not immediately coming back together. We're going to have a little period here where they're apart, and then maybe they'll come back together in some sort of different form. I like the cut through to just see what everyone is doing at all these different times. Some people are continuing the vigilante work, other people are doing other stuff. I think this is the best possible way they could have come out of Robin War. It just makes Robin War feel a little bit more superfluous because of it, Like going into Robin War, they were already in a not great place because of the friend dying. And yes, there were some issues in between there, but like still, they were in a not great place. This feels like it could have easily just come out of that, and we just didn't need that little in-between stuff. And of course, the implication is that Alfred's still looking over them, being a dude dressed up and walking around amongst them. So overall, not a bad issue. I like the Joker stuff as well. I think it's got, the idea that this kid, he's troubled, he's damaged, he's got a whole bunch of issues that he's blaming other people for. It's a good little snapshot of a lot of different people online. But overall, it's a solid issue. I think I'm going to say this one is easily a 7.5. Aquaman number 48, written by Cullen, Bunn, art by Vicente Cifuentes. So last issue, we had the big battle against the Thule or whatever is starting up, and Mara got out of her chains and blah, blah, blah. This issue is a wrap-up. In theory, it's something. So we see that the Thule stuff is popping out all over the world. Paris, America, a different place in America. And down in Atlantis, it's getting like the real brunt of it. We see that there is a young girl who's about to be crushed by a rock that's falling, and then Aquaman comes in and grabs it, and she's like, oh my God, King Arthur, I knew you wouldn't abandon us. And he's like, right, totally, get out of here. At that point, we see that the squad shows up, tries to take out Arthur. Tula, Garth, Swat, and Merc, aka The Drift. And he's like, Are you serious? Atlantis is literally falling apart. You want to do this now? And they're like, well, there are people who believe that you might be kind of responsible for this in some way. So like, yes, we kind of want to do this right now. And also, you sicked an entire bunch of sea monsters against Atlantis and our armies. So that's weird. And he's like, look, I just had to do that to be able to get in. Like, they're not going to kill anybody. You're fine. Don't worry about it. You need to know that Mara is not Mara. She's a shapeshifter, and she's been replaced. And everyone's like, pshaw, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then the room where Mara was being held explodes, and two Maras come out, and they're like, fair enough. I guess there are two Maras. And then Aquaman's like, no, there's only one Mara. And we see that she uses her water-bending hydrokinesis stuff to take out the sister. I don't even remember her name because, like, they don't say it here. She just gets knocked to the ground, and she says, just like, I hate you. And then Aquaman and Mara meet back up again. They have a big passionate kiss, and just like, oh, there's so much I want to tell you, but, like, not now. We've got bigger things to do. So they both come over to the Drift, and they're like, okay, here's the deal. The spells that have kept Thule over there are fading. They've been preparing this for centuries. I need your guys' help. We're going to have to go over to Thule, and we're going to have to take care of that. Mind you, the Justice League was doing that last issue, but I guess we're doing something else here now. So they come in through this portal, and they start attacking the Thule monsters or whatever, and it's all 6 of them doing it. Arthur makes the point of saying that this is the source of the magic of the like spread or whatever. It happens to be coincided with the location of Atlantis in the other world, and because of that, it used Atlantis as its initial sacrifice to make these spells to begin with. So the Drift are holding back to do their thing. Mera and Aquaman go deeper into this castle that's there, and he's like, look, in order to seal them off again, I'm probably going to have to make another sacrifice. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but just full disclosure, it might not end well. So there are some mages in there. They start throwing down crazy spell things at Aquaman. He's holding it back with his trident, and Mera's like, excuse me, what? This ain't in your power set. And he's like, no, these are the blessings of Poseidon. Don't worry about it. But like, it's key to what I'm doing here. It's absolutely critical. So he thrusts his trident into the ground, and he says, like, all right, this is all wild, crazy magic. I can withstand it for a few minutes, but I can't guarantee it'll protect you, so you need to get out of here. And, like, the castle's crumbling down, and she steps up, and she's like, no, if this doesn't work, then we'll be together here at the end. So in contrast, in opposite of what we saw before, now we see that like the Eiffel Tower has invaded Paris. A truck stop truck has invaded somewhere in Thule, and then also whatever the hell the last thing is, Metropolis. We see the Daily Planet building. And Aquaman says, all right, I used up all of Poseidon's magic to make this happen. We're doing the spell again. But instead of Thule invading Earth, we're making Earth invade Thule. And that will make Thule the sacrifice that allows this to work out. And therefore, we never have to worry about it again. So they pulse the magic a little bit stronger, and it works. Just no problems. Everything's fine. Thule is completely gone, and Earth stands triumphant in both dimensions, or maybe like a new dimension. They don't bring it up. So he meets back up with bunch of Atlanteans, and they're like, oh, hey, great, Aquaman, you saved us. And then he's like, oh my god, my people are happy to see me. Glad we just fixed that one. So we see him meeting up with the Justice League, and he's like, yeah, I know this could have been avoided if I had talked to you guys sooner. I'm sorry. I'll do that next time. Also, Wonder Woman, it'd be kind of neat if I could talk to Poseidon and like get my magic back, because I don't have that. And she's like, yeah, I could put in a word. We could do that. And in steps Etrelax, or whatever the hell his name was. And he's like, oh, by the way, my king, that'd be super cool for you to have those magic powers, because your kingdom just grew by several thousand people. And we see the Justice League has saved all these people from Thule, and they're now safe here. And Aquaman leads it off with saying, I know, but I could barely handle one kingdom. What am I supposed to do with all these refugees? Tune in for Cullen Bunn's next arc. Oh, wait, the end of the issue says, screw that, we're going into Dan Abnett. Maybe this was intentional. I'm not going to throw Cullen Bunn under the bus there and say, like, oh, he just left this on the plate for Dan Abnett. Maybe Abnett requested it. Maybe they talked about it. I can't say. What I do know is this is not the end of a story. Like, this was since issue 41. That's when we began the DCYOU. So this has been going on for 8 issues now. And I don't understand what happened. I have, like, all this Thule stuff seems so overly complicated, of like it's another dimension that had an ancient spell and it was a branch off a different timeline. It's the Super Mario Brothers movie, but from the 90s, where there was a whole different thing of dinosaurs that did their own thing. That's what this was for 8 issues. And the ending is just like, oh yeah, and then also we just reversed the polarity. That's all we had to do. What? No, it isn't. You needed to do more. You can't just say that. I've been giving this book a lot of slack. That's it. I've been cutting it a lot of slack, because it felt like we were building to something. It felt like, okay, we're doing this epic. We're doing something larger here. And for it to just end here at issue 48 to say like, no, turns out we defeated the evil sister. It was as simple as blasting some water at her while we were underwater. And then also we reversed the polarity and the Justice League saved everybody from Thule at the end. It's just disappointing. Like, there's no other word for it. It's disappointing. So 6. I can be argued to go lower, but I'm willing to be a little bit cordial and extend the 6 for this specific issue. The arc as a whole, much lower, but this issue specifically, 6. Cyborg number 7, written by David F. Walker, art by Claude St. Albin. So, finished up the Techno-Sapien stuff, still feeling the ramifications of it though in this issue. However, we're more focused on Cyborg's mom. So we open up with many years ago a flashback to just throughout Cyborg's life, through Victor Stone's life, his mom always being there, singing him lullabies and sending him to a private school so that he can get the best education, yada, 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 until eventually she died in the explosion, Darkseid's attack, all that stuff. So we then cut to now, modern day, where we're getting the new status quo after the Techno-Sapien thing, where pretty much everyone is viewing any sort of cybernetics, any sort of prosthetics that are made of cyber stuff, as questionable, as dangerous, as especially Star Labs stuff is very much a hot topic. So we cut over to Cyborg watching this on the couch, and he's just talking to his cat, just like, yeah, I guess this is a whole thing I got to deal with now. And he's, his mental state is literally this whole thing of like, oh, I've always known exactly how much of me was machine and how much was human, but ever since the Techno-Sapiens, well, I don't know what to think. So we see he flies over to Star Labs, he lands down, and as soon as he gets there, armed guards, the military, just aimed right at him. There's a senator there named Senator Champlin who's made this his pet project to basically take Star Labs and say, no, you all suck and you're going to be part of the federal government now. We're taking you over because you're too dangerous to be alone. But he doesn't say that outright yet. He basically is just like, look, the entire world saw the Techno-Sapien stuff and your Star Labs was at the center of it. And he's like, yeah, and my son also fixed it. That wasn't the Justice League. That was just him. And he's like, well, whatever. So Cyborg eventually gets inside. He starts talking to, God, they really do never say her name, do they? Erica, I guess. I don't know, whatever her name is. And she's basically like, hey, look, it's not safe for you to be here. The senator's looking for someone to point the finger at. And he's like, yeah, totally. But like, I need you to help me out because I don't understand what's happening to my body. I've been going through some changes recently and I could really use a health teacher. And he's basically like, look, help me get into the top secret stuff before I get decommissioned and taken apart and all that stuff. So he ends up getting into the Red Room, and as he gets in there, he accesses all the files that have to do with cybernetics, nanotech, and he puts in his name, his dad's name, and his mom's name as cross-reference, because she worked on the files as well. But it's at that point that a silhouetted figure appears in the room, and it turns out it's his mom, and he's like, what? That's what? And she approaches. She's like, oh my God, Victor, what happened to you? What's going on? But her hand phases right through him. And she's like, what's going on? And Cyborg's like, let's just sit down and talk this out for a minute. So we cut back over to one of the med rooms where Dr. Morrow is being treated. And it's like, look, see, he was infected by Techno-Sapiens and he's fine now. And the senator's like, yeah, well, there's plenty of people who aren't fine now, Mr. Stone, and what about them? Like, their cybernetic implants were infected. It's a whole big thing. So they just keep arguing back and forth until finally this general lady chimes in saying like, all right, both of you two shut up, and you're going to help me figure out what we can do to help make sure this never happens again to our planet. Excuse me. So they get led around the facility some more. We cut back to Victor, who's talking to his mom and just being like, okay, let's start with your questions. What's up? And she's like, the last thing I remember was I like just saw you. And Cyborg's like, yeah, well, I got into an explosion. I was going to be dead, but then Dad used the technology that you and him were researching, and I got fixed up and I look like this now. And she's like, but I saw you just a few hours ago. And he's like, no, it's been years. It's been quite some time. And she's like, no, the last thing I remember was I was putting on a helmet to download an artificial duplicate of my brain into a computer system. This hyper-intelligent lady does not put two and two together immediately, though. She's like, no, but I remember everything. I remember your childhood and the lullabies I used to sing you. And Cyborg's like, right. You made a copy of your brain, Mom. That would be there. But she, starts crying or whatever. And he's just like, no, look, Mom, like, it feels real and all that, but you're a ghost, essentially. We cut over to the apartment of Sebastian Cardona. They're looking for the feds are looking for Robert Zirozinski. He's the guy who was involved in the previous arc, and he had some magical tech with him. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. I expected the Men in Black to show up eventually. Let's go. So they hop in the car. We then see that, the feds are taking away people from inside Star Labs, people who are getting treatment. And they all stand up and are like, oh, you can't do this. This is whatever. And the feds are just like, oh, actually, yeah, this is classified stuff. We gotta take care of this. So Cyborg gives a very abridged version of all the things he did with the Justice League, such as sit in the Watchtower and sit in the Watchtower. And the mom's just like, wow, that's incredible. But like, I don't care about any of that. Are you happy? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you change your underwear? And he's just like, don't really have underwear, and no, so on the girlfriend thing as well. It's all very complicated. She's like, more complicated than the parademon stuff. And he's like, well, here's a recent change. And then he just shifts his body, as he's able to do now, to look completely human. And he's like, I don't know if any of me is still human or if all of me now, like something weird is going on here. So we go back over to the senator, who's justifying his actions, saying like, look, if you want to take this through the bureaucracy or whatever, try to get your stuff back, so be it. But this is a matter of national security. Star Labs was at ground zero of all this stuff. We are going to do this, and we're going to take all this here, and we're taking all of the cybernetics that were made by Star Labs. Now they are the property of the federal government until we can determine what kind of risk they pose. And to be clear, Mr. Stone, that includes your son, the Cyborg. He is now our property, and if he refuses, we will label him as a terroristic threat and an enemy of the state. And we see he gives this sick little grin at the end, proving that he's the villain. All right. I'll be honest, I am one of those in the camp that believes there are very few Cyborg stories. I know there are people out there who try to defend it, but like there are like 3 Cyborg stories you could tell. But the most common of which, if you really just boil it down, is like, am I man or am I robot? And just exploring that sort of stuff. This one, I appreciate how it comes out of the techno-sapien stuff. It is a clear consequence of that, and they're really playing off of it. I like the idea that we introduce this different aspect of, are you human or are you robot, with the fact that the mom is just a hologram mind clone. Like, at what point does humanity stop? If the mind is 100% duplicated, is that still human? Is that now robot? I appreciate that we're looking at that through a different lens there. Hopefully they take that the whole way to its natural conclusion, but we'll see. I appreciate that this is feeling like a genuinely different story, but it still feels like a Cyborg story. It still feels like, yep, this is one of those where we're having to deal with the humanity versus robot side of things. I guess I'm going to say this one is probably... I think for writing, I give it a 7.5. There's something about the art that takes it down, though. It just feels way too flat, way too basic. Not to criticize the artist at all. They did a great job, but it just, I don't know, especially with the last arc, it was really popping. This one just feels a little bit lower than that. So I'm going to say this one is a 7. But it's still a good start. I just hope they take it to its philosophical conclusion of being interesting. Black Canary number 7, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Annie Wu. So last issue we got some reveals. We found out that it turns out that Kurt Lance was the one behind all this. He's older. He was sent through time or something, and Ditto's also fine. This issue plays fast and loose with a few things. I'm just going to be clear with that. So we open it up and we get this breakdown of the idea of like time and vibration and like sentience and all this stuff and harmony and whatever else. And we flash between like Dinah and Kurt, and Kurt's in his old age, and this woman playing violin. And all this is taking place inside of a giant, almost kaiju-sized creature called Quietus, the Quietus, which is this emptiness, and it eats up everything and everything that could be and all that. And it's currently marching through town. And Kurt is saying all this to Dinah, saying, okay, let me give you the rollout. This is a whole thing. They're like, I was there. I've seen everything. It's all that. And he says that because of the way that Ditto is not a person. Ditto is an alien that is actually sentient sound. And when the screams from the previous issue destroyed Ditto, it was actually a Dr. Manhattan sort of thing where it just got discombobulated and then reassembled. But Kurt got disrupted as well. And when he rematerialized, he was out of time. He was just on his own thing, but he saw crazy ass stuff. Turns out Ditto's people can't usually do the things Ditto can do, so they're hunting down Ditto in order to neutralize the threat that she is, and they are using this giant creature called the Quietus to do that, because the Quietus just absorbs all sound, including the sentient sound that is Ditto. However, Kurt has made a plan where they're just going to rock so hard and so strong, it will destroy the Quietus. The Quietus, which again, can absorb all sound. So they fly out to this stadium where they're going to bait the Quietus to. They've set it up with walls upon walls of amplifiers, and there's a stage in the middle where Dinah and the rest of Black Canary is going to play. So they get all set up. And it's like, yep, it'll be attracted here. You're going to get it here and destroy it. And as they're getting set up, Dinah turns to the rest of the band saying, okay, like full disclosure though, I am actually a superhero. Like I run with Wonder Woman. I do stuff with the rest of the Justice League. Y'all need to leave. This isn't just like fighting against small time things anymore. Y'all need to get out of here ASAP because this is not safe for you. I'm not a musician. I'm a warrior. You all are musicians. You gotta bail. And she comes in. One of the room bandmates is like, Kurt said that we were all needed to do this. He saw all of time. We were all here. We all got to be here. And so they say, yep, we can be here. We're gonna fight. We're gonna do whatever. And then in comes Maeve, who's like, I hope you're okay with another singer. I'd love to come in. And you think this is the moment where it's like, all right. You know, if you want to do the right thing now, we'll take you. But no, Dinah says, get the hell out of here. We don't want to see you. We never wanted to see you again. But Maeve locks eyes with Ditto, who she thought was dead. And is just like, oh my God, you're fine. That's great, fine. And she hugs her and like cries a little bit. She's like, oh, thank you, thank you. But then the other bandmates are like, no, you don't get to have a moment. Get out of here. We hate you. You're not allowed here. You literally became a supervillain. You have superpowers, and we're working with the villain. What is wrong with you? And she's like, and she looks back at the third bandmate and like, getting nothing there. And Dinah's like, no, seriously, there's nothing for you here. You need to leave. But then Kurt comes in and says, no, actually, she's part of the time vision thing too. She needs to stay. This was all part of my plan, Dinah. This is all part of it. Don't you find it weird that you were asked to join this band that she was originally headlining, and then also she got the superpowers? That's a bit too convenient. Am I right? Turns out that I orchestrated all that, and we made sure that she had superpowers to match yours in order to basically boost the volume enough to take on Quietus. And Ditto's holding Maeve's hand because they became buddies or something in the long bone. So yep, they're all coming together, the whole thing. But before they can do anything, Amanda Waller comes in on a helicopter. Sorry, not a helicopter, just a floating random ass platform. And she's like, hey, we want that Ditto thing. You're coming with me. We're doing that now. And she calls out like Dinah, saying like, oh yeah, I hear you change your name back to Dinah Drake after your husband and all that. And she's like, nope, I'm Dinah Lance again. My husband's alive and well. He's sitting in that wheelchair and he's like 85. And Lance is like, hello, it's me. And Waller's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you back since Team 7. What's up, man? And he's like, look, your men will die if you don't leave. You got to get out of here. I've seen the future. It's a whole thing. And then there's a loud explosion from Quietus. And Waller's just like, okay, well, I guess I'll leave it to you then. But like, this isn't over between us. So they get everything pumped up. Quietus starts approaching and they start letting it rock. And it goes hard. They ramp it up. They hit it with everything they can. Amanda's watching from the control panel back with Kurt and just like, oh, we have to redirect the amplification, blah, blah, blah. But then Quietus unleashes his power, which, again, to be clear, is eating all the sound. So the amps go quiet. The drums go quiet. Everything goes quiet. The canary cry goes quiet. So everything's totally mute from here on out. There's no more dialogue in the book until like the very, very end. And we see... Dinah is like, all right, well, if we can't beat it with sound, we're going to beat it physically. So she just like throws the microphone into it as like a javelin, and then she just leaps up and starts beating the crap out of it. There's this page where it's like sheet music, and we see them like falling down the bars, and like the bars start collapsing underneath their weight. Doesn't seem to work out for Canary, though. She's down on the ground. Quietus is over top, and then in comes a snare, or not a snare drum, crash cymbal, and just impales the throat of Quietus. Turns out it was the White Ninja from like 3 issues ago that threw it, and everyone's like, who the hell's the White Ninja? What? So the rest of the people join in. They're fighting as well. They're all throwing whatever band equipment they can into it. We see that Maeve and Canary once again get as close as they can to Quietus. For some reason, their scream now works, and it dissipates Quietus. It's gone. It's over. Ditto's down on the ground. She took a hit somewhere in the middle of all this. Maeve comes over and she's like, oh, don't you die on me. And Ditto just wakes up and she's like, okay, all right, I guess you're fine. No problem. So Waller's like, all right, but like for real, we're going to take Ditto now. We needed their DNA. It's super important for national security or whatever. And Kurt's like, well, I dissipated with Ditto. So now my DNA is also shared with Ditto. Like Ditto has mine and I have its, and it's just like, oh cool, you willing to share that? And Kurt's like, yeah, as long as it means you're not gonna take the kid. And Waller's like, all right, fine, yeah, no problem. So as everyone's collapsing into a group hug, Dinah is no longer present. I don't know where in that scene she went, but we cut to mirroring the first scene where we're like zooming through different times and stuff like that. We see young Dinah on a bed and then old Dinah waking up on that same bed, and standing over top of her is the White Ninja lady. And I think the implication is it's either a sister or a mother, because it says everything is, and then it bolds the word relatives. So like there's that. And it seems like it's this thing where they're saying like, oh, it was only a matter of time, but there's something still missing. Someone we can find together. Take my hand and let me tell you who you really are. So whatever that means. We got 5 more issues of this. That's enough to fit in an arc. It's creative. It's a really creative issue. I really like the way that it does the stylized. Like everything is mute. Quietus is attacking, and like they do all this fight scene in a very creative way. They bring the threads all back together as well, bringing back the White Ninja, doing all that stuff. It's well placed. It's well done. I like pretty much all of it. My only criticism, the only little thing I can lobby at it here, is the idea of this Quietus creature and Kurt's entire plan, and like the fact that he was the one behind it. Feels like it comes out of nowhere. It feels like it's just like, oh, okay, there's this creature, and like this was what it was all about the whole time, and Ditto's an alien, and like it feels like we weren't ramping up to this. This is just the, oh right, I gotta have an explanation. It was a scribble, and this is what we got. So again, I like the issue independently. It feels fine as an issue. It's just crazy that this is all of a sudden just like, oh, by the way, there's this world-ending creature called the Quietus that can devour sound and life itself, so deal with that, why don't you? Overall, I'm going to say this one is still a 7.5. Just from the stylistic viewpoint alone would easily get it there, but I like the issue itself, so yeah, it's cool. Teen Titans number 16, written by Will Pfeiffer, art by Miguel Madancha. So last issue was a Robin War thing. All you need to know is they fought Professor Pig, because everything else is just out the window. We're just done. So we open in Gotham, where all the Teen Titans, including Doomed, Riser, whatever his name was, and also Chimera. I don't think Doomed was in the last issue, but he's just hanging out here now. And they're all just chilling, waiting around for Red Robin, and basically saying, man, Gotham sucks. We had our blood taken by Professor Pig. That's That's weird. But then Red Robin shows up. He's like, hey, guys, you enjoying your stay in Gotham? I finished with the Robin War stuff. And they're like, oh, hey, man, can we leave? Like, what are we doing next? We are currently in a bad mood. Can you pull us out of that, Mr. Robin? And Tim's just like, no. I think everything's still grimdark. I'm not sure we're going to be able to pull out of that one, but it's, we'll figure that out. Raven, what's up? You can help us through this grimdark. And Raven's like, nah, you got followed, man. And he's like, no, I didn't. And then all of a sudden his monitor wall just breaks down and this big robot looking dude comes out and he's making like noises. And he's like, hey, we want Chimera. Give us Chimera and we might leave you alive. And Robin's like, Titans, do your thing. As he's underneath the boot of this robot. Kid Flash takes away the robot's gun. Power Girl comes in with a mean right hook, and then Bunker buries him under a bunch of bricks. It's literally done in a page. As they come up, they take off his mask, and it's revealed that it's not a robot, it's a Durlin. And they turn to Chimera, and they're like, hey, this is one of your people. You know what's up? And she's like, well, that's the Royal Guard uniform, so we might want to be a little concerned. And then all of a sudden, the roof explodes, and there's a spaceship and a bunch more Durlins that are leading like a SWAT team. So immediately they nail down Kid Flash. They're like, he's got the Speed Force, take him out. They put him in a random frequency algorithm bubble. Sure, it incapacitates him briefly. We then cut over to Power Girl and Bunker, who are the power hitters, so they just take out a few Durlins, but then one of them says, haha, us Durlins are great at redirecting and making you attack your own enemies. And then he presses a button, and for some reason, Bunker's bricks just fly up and hit Cassie in the face. We then go to Beast Boy, who turns into a gorilla and attacks one of the Durlins as Power Girl grows huge behind them and starts just throwing punches and kicks. They ignore Power Girl. Like, they're still getting beat up, but they don't do anything about her. But they turn their attention to Beast Boy, put him into a floating bubble of water, and say, haha, gorillas famously aren't great at holding their breath, I guess. And so Gar changes into an Arapaima to get out of the bubble of water, which I don't even know how that works. It just pops when he turns into a really big fish, and then he turns into an elephant, which I feel like probably would be able to get out of the bubble of water anyway, and squishes the Chimera, or the Durlin, underneath his hoof. What is that, paw? What is the foot of an elephant? I can't recall. Anyway, they've effectively taken out all the Durlins, until Big Papa Durlin comes out of the ship, and he's like, y'all suck. Y'all are bad Durlins. You need to show strength. And so what does he do? I don't know. He flashes his headlights on his ship, causing him to go into silhouette. It goes whoomp as the sound effect, and then all the Teen Titans are taken out. Yep, except for Raven. Raven, she's like, haha, but I have psychic powers, so you can't take me out that easy. And then the Durlin says, we brought our own cleric on our ship. She can summon demons that are stronger than your demons. And then she does it. And Raven's, I guess, also out now. So he leans over to Chimera and is like, come here. Look, we want you, because you're the only one with shape-shifting powers out of the Durlins right now. You got to come save your species. Come on, take your rightful place in the galaxy. And Red Robin's like, no, you bastard, you're not going to take her. And he's like standing up. He's trying to make a final defiant stand. He's like, we'll chase you to the edge of the galaxy for one of our own. That's just who we are. And the Chimera says, nah, I'm done with this book. I'm out. Look, I'm going to say it's because, like, oh, we're such good friends that I don't want anything bad to happen to you. And what do you mean this is the exact same reason Superboy gave 2 issues ago? Ignore that. Bye. And she hops on the ship and leaves. That'd be bad enough. That would already be just an abysmal way of writing off a character. But we're going for broke. So the rest of the Titans stand around. They're like, what do we do, Red Robin? And Red Robin says, all right, Kid Flash, I need you to... Wait a minute, where's Bart? What happened to Kid Flash? And everyone looks around, they're like, oh no, did he get got? Did he get taken? What happened? And Power Girl, who is still huge at this point, is like, guys... Kid Flash took all of your Sharpies and he wrote a long ass scrawled message on the ground basically saying, hey guys, I remembered that at the end of the Teen Titans first book, the one Scott Lobdell did, that I left my girlfriend Solstice in future jail in space. And I remember that I should probably do something about that. So I'm gone. Bye. Like, everyone just looks around like, what? Anybody else? Anybody else got to leave? Are we seriously? Like, what are we doing here? So eventually they're sitting there like, all right, well, I mean, our base was just destroyed. Do we go to a new city? Do we set up another one? What city we want to go to this time? And then Ryza raises a hand, doomed kid, and he's like, I actually have an internship in Metropolis, so I can't go too far away from there. I guess I'll just head back there now. And Tim's just like, oh my God. Okay, yeah, doomed kid. You were barely even in this book, but like, sure. Go on. Raven will teleport you back there. Whatever. So at that point, a whole bunch of GCPD helicopters show up. They're all hovering over top of the exploded building. They're like, put your hands in the air. We've got power dampeners. We're going to take you out. And Beast Boy gets so pissed off. He's a chimp at this point. He gets so pissed off at the mention of power dampeners that in his chip form, he flips off the helicopters and Raven teleports them all away to some unknown location. Because Red Robin was basically saying like, look, we got to go somewhere smaller. We got to stop going to like these big places. We got to go somewhere smaller and somewhere where we're needed, you know? So they teleport out. We cut to 1 week later. We're in the city of Heaton, Pennsylvania. Population 42,000. We see a masked vigilante has been trapped down an alleyway by a group of thugs that have maybe powers, but at least a bunch of weapons. And they're like, we're going to beat the ever-loving crap out of you. We're probably going to kill you. That's what's going to happen here. And then as they're about to fight, the Teen Titans appear at the other end of the alley and say, we're the Teen Titans. We're probably going to lose a member before the end of the next issue. All right. Will Pfeiffer. I don't want to make this a long talk, but I need to be able to say this. I apologize because I can recognize that you've gotten the short end of the stick here. These are characters that I'm sure you don't want to write off. I don't know why you have to. I don't get, like, I'm flabbergasted that you're doing this at all. But, like, yeah, you've been given the short end of the stick and you're being forced probably to do these things. If you're not, ignore everything I'm saying. This is awful. Like, you should be ashamed. But it feels like you're being forced to do these things. Here's where I run into the editorial side of things and, like, the bigger things. Scott Lobdell is a bad writer. You can check me on that one. And the reason that he's bad, in my eyes, whenever I'm reading him, is that it always feels out of place. It feels grimdark and too gritty, while at the same time working in strange, uncomfortable humor that feels like 3 decades too late. So you've got this dichotomy here that just doesn't work writing-wise. Pfeiffer's writing is fine. It doesn't have any of those problems. The writing style is not the issue. The issue is, over the course of 4 issues, Superboy leaving, the wrap-up of the prison invasion arc that did nothing, the Robin War tie-in, which, to be fair, I don't think was Pfeiffer. I think someone else was on that. And then this, where we write off Kid Flash in a note written in Sharpie on the goddamn ground. The book is done. The book is, like, this should have ended forever ago. We've still got like 7 more issues. This book continues on well past the rest of the DC main continuity into Rebirth for no goddamn reason. But, like, there's nothing to do. You as much as you want to keep changing up the status quo, you're done. This is the equivalent of like, oh, the actor didn't want to renew their contract for the last season, so we're just having to like write around this main character because we wanted one more season. But you're working with fictional characters. You don't have a contract problem. So what's happening here? Oh, God. This one hits a little bit harder because I thought the Superboy one was going to be the worst, but at the very least, that one had some like emotionality to it. That one like tried to make it this big heartfelt thing. This one, like, no, it's just garbage. It's just, he wrote a goodbye note in Sharpie on the ground. What? 2.5. May God have mercy on your souls. Justice League 3001, number 8, written by Keith Giffen and J.M.D. Mateus, art by Scott Collins. So, last issue, the world / galaxy / whatever this general federation is was overtaken by robots called the Scullions. And it was not good. They were being overrun, and very actively this invasion was happening. this issue skips ahead like 6 months. Like, the Scullions won. Everything went to crap. And it's like, okay, Wonder Woman's working secretly as like a welder who's like helping to fix stuff up around this place. We see, not Kid Flash, but Flash, Terry is making her way through the city, getting groceries. And when a Scullion passes by her, she's like freaking out. She has a panic attack after what happened to Superman. So she just hides off in a corner. Guy approaches her and is just like, hey, you know, I'm here. Let's go home. I'll take you back. Everything's going to be okay. We see that the Scullions are talking to, interrogating random civilians, which essentially just is like threatening them and then blowing their heads up. Basically looking to see, okay, we've got DNA records. She's been around here. And they're talking about Flash at this point. We see Ice and Fire are talking to each other. Also, this is like 3 times in 1 week that someone needed a password and the password has been Swordfish, which is a very specific 90s reference, but okay, whatever. They get into this secret bunker that the rest of the Justice League are hiding out in, and it's where everything's happening. And they're basically just saying, like, should we go out and do something? Is it better for us to hang back here? But, like, at the very least, we got to be able to get through this. The other thing we see is Supergirl. She basically is the one who breaks it down for us. She's like, it's been 6 months. The Scullions took over. And she makes the reveal that turns out the big bad of the story is not the Scullions. There's someone who's guiding the Scullions named Lady Styx, which sounded vaguely familiar. It apparently showed up in Threshold and Blue Beetle at the beginning of the New 52. But Lady Styx has been the big bad this entire time, ever since like the 5. They were also all under the thrall of Lady Styx, and now she's made her play finally, and she's been around for years, and it's something that they never could have stopped because she's been here the whole time. So we see that Supergirl and all them have set up little portals to teleport to their base and keep things secretive about where they are actually located without being tracked or anything. Wonder Woman comes in and she's like, I've had it. This sucks. I don't want to be hiding out anymore. I want to bring the fight to them. We got to do our thing. And Supergirl's like, we got to bide our time. Like, this is, you just got to go with the plan. She's like, no, screw that. I'm done. And Supergirl has to basically talk her down, just being like threatening her. Like, I will kick your ass if you keep this up here. But Wonder Woman still goes for the war weapons, and everyone starts just making their viewpoint known. Some are on the side of like, we should go out there. We need to fight. We've been hiding for too long. It's been 6 months. They've taken control of everything. And she makes the stipulation, Lady Styx, that's basically like, yeah, you must, I will give you safety and all this stuff and security, but you have to do everything I say no matter what. So at that point, everyone speaks up, and Guy is the one who's like, look, stop arguing. We need to calm down and think this through. And then Guy's like, wait a minute, since when am I the voice of reason? And they remind us of the fact that Guy's host body is still pushing for control. And eventually, Guy Gardner, as we know, him will be forced out entirely. So as they're bickering, finally someone points out, hey, wait a minute. Tina, the new Batman, quote unquote, apparently she goes by Batgirl, her armor's gone. What's that? Where's Tina at? So at that point, we see that Tina has run off, and she just regularly jumps in and like goes in the middle of town and starts beating the crap out of any Scullion she can find. So she's going at it. We see all the Scullions are like, excuse me, we're highly intelligent robots. We can easily come up with any sort of strategy to beat you, and we can do that. And then they do something. They like override her energy core with blah, blah, blah techno magic. And she manages to tank it, and she's like, oh, you were saying? And they're like, whatever, we can still like take you on. Like, we'll just adjust again. We'll always manage to find a way out. So as the fight's continuing, eventually they aim all their lasers at Tina, and Tina's like, all right, come on, give it your best shot. And then all of a sudden she's yeeted back, and Supergirl grabs her through a portal, and Tina's like, why didn't you grab me? I was about to kick ass and do cool things. And they're like, what are you doing going out there? We're trying to remain hidden. If any of them grab you and hack into your suit, they would reveal the location that we're all at, and we'd all be screwed. And Tina gets out of the armor, and it's revealed that she's actually wearing Robin costume underneath it. So outside it's a Batmech, inside it's Robin costume. And they're like, what are you wearing? And she's like, oh, you like it? It's a traditional for me to wear. It's the sidekick, you know? That's what I'm doing. I'm a hero and the sidekick at the same time. And Supergirl's like, no, whatever. I'm going out for air. So Robin basically has to justify herself to the rest of the league. They all talk her down, just being like, look, that's you shouldn't have been doing that. You're being rude. And she's like, no, screw that. It's been 6 months. We need to be out there. And they also talk down to Terry because Terry's the one who's been having nervous breakdowns ever since then. And they're just like, no, that's not cool. She's your teammate. And she's like, all right, I'm sorry, Terry. So at this point we go and we see Fire and Ice are continuing to talk. And they're basically like hanging out on Themyscira. That's where their base of operations here is. But they're like, it's ruined. Everything is gone. 1,000 years ago is like where I remember this place. And I can't relate to anything here. It's all this stuff. And she's like, hey, I'm the same boat as you. Like, I also can't relate to this stuff, but at least we have each other and all that. And, you know, they're professing their love for each other and whatever. And then Guy comes in and is like, what about me? Ice, we had a thing. We loved each other. What about me? I'm also not used to this whole new world or whatever. And also, I'm going through a schizophrenic episode here. So what about me? And she's like, well, okay, sorry, Guy, but like, that's not really anything to do with what me and Fire were talking about. And it's like, all right, whatever. So we go to Supergirl, and she's just reflecting on everything that happened with Lady Styx, saying like, you know, peace and security, but like total domination and fascism and all that. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Lady Styx was not in this book prior. I double checked. This is just all of a sudden, and here's your big bad. Why not? So at that point, she gets so pissed off, her heat vision goes off, she blasts the door, and it's obvious that she doesn't want to sit and wait anymore. So she goes out to the league and says, all right, everyone, call the others. We then go out into space, and we see that a ship is returning to Lady Styx's home world, her throne world, whatever you want to call it, and they've returned with the brother Terrence Magnus, the one who was part of the Five. I guess he got lobotomized or something, but we see that Lady Styx has managed to grab him and is like, oh, you're certain this is him? This is the brother of the Flash woman. It's just like, yes, he's been neutered by Cadmus in order to make sure he's not thinking, but this is Flash's twin, and be like, great, fantastic. So Terry falls to the ground before Lady Styx and just being like, all right, you cool for whatever I want to do here? And just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And she's like, cool. Our intelligence was flawed during our initial attack because we didn't know they had a Supergirl or the robot Batman thing, but whatever, I'll explain it all later. And she just does something to Terry to imbue him with her power, and he starts glowing. Where that ends up, Lord only knows. So yeah, the Lady Styx thing. I mean, the 6 month jump ahead, it's okay. I'm willing to accept it more in this book because this book is set like so far out of continuity. It's so far of like in the distant future and also an alternate timeline. Like, fine. I'm willing to take that. Keith Giffen can just have fun with his toys here. He can do whatever he wants. The Lady Styx thing is what bugs me because it's one thing to say, oh, the Scullions are all under the master of this person. And like, you can have that. That's fine. But to say that this person was always there. This person was pulling the strings of the Five. This person was around during all the interstitial stuff for that whole year in between. And it's just like, yeah, do we really want to do that? Do we really want to waste time? I mean, not even waste time. Do we really just want to like discount everything that we did there? I don't know. I get on paper, it makes the villain more menacing, but I don't feel it. Like it just feels like cheap at that point, especially after a time jump. If this were a thing where like they explained of like, here's what I did to guide the Five into this position to make this happen and this other thing happen, I can understand that more. But they just say like, nah, she was actually there and she did it, and don't ask questions. So 6, maybe a 5.5 even. I'm going to say 6, but like I was already a little bit sour on this arc as it began because it felt like it was beginning with a little bit of a damp squib. It didn't feel like it was really like kicking off an arc. It just felt like a very slow, like, and yet all of a sudden lead in of just like, and Scullions. But it's not gaining any favors by what it's doing here, so it can easily go down. Batman and Robin Eternal number 17, written by Snyder, Tynion, and Brisson, art by Scott Eaton. So finally, we get the answers to what the hell did Batman do in that alley all those years ago in Egypt. We don't open up with that, though. First thing we open up with is we go to Spiral headquarters, which is St. Hadrian's girls' school or whatever, and we see that Orphan is being kept in a Loki from the Avengers style cage, and he's like, oh, yep, you know, you've brought your enemy into your home. Rookie mistake. I'm going to ruin all your stuff. And they're like, okay, look, are you done? Are you done with your talking? Because, like, we're just going to start our interrogation then. And Helena, head of Spiral, for anyone who doesn't know, flips a switch, and immediately, like, hypno stuff goes on, and it's like threatening to fry Orphan's brain. And Grayson's even like, that's okay, a little bit much. And he's like, he's had good mental conditioning. We got to push through it. So they push it through, and then Grayson's like, all right, what was Batman doing in Cairo? What did he do for Mother? And Orphan's just like, oh, I ain't telling you anything. You think no. I know all about your tech. I prepped for it. You think it's so invulnerable, but no, I got it all up here. And Helena's like, all right, so how do you want to handle this next? And Grayson's like, I'm thinking I just beat him up. I'm thinking I could just do it that way. But then Orphan's like, now here's a question for you, little Robin. If you trust Batman so much, if you think you're his equal, why didn't he tell you any of this stuff, huh? Why are you even doubting him to begin with? So we flash back to the Cairo stuff, and we see Batman shot a mother and father in front of the child in an alleyway outside a theater. And as the kid's freaking out, like, oh my God, Mom, everything else, Batman's like, yes, Mother, it all went according to plan. And Mother and Orphan step out and just like, oh yes, good job, bravo. Batman, you did it. You successfully did that. Didn't think you would, considering it's a gun. So Batman's like, cool, so this kid's going to be my Robin. What's going to happen to him? And Mother's like, oh, no, not at all. I would never let you be in charge of your own Robin, like, just in case something went wrong. No, I wasn't going to do that. Your own Robin's going to be some other kid I'm taking care of separately. But, like, I also just needed you to prove yourself here. I had to know I trusted you. But then the kid yells out. He's like, don't believe him. My mom and dad are still breathing. Mother, this Batman, he's faked it. They're not actually dead. To which point Orphan then attacks Batman, and Batman's like, you. So Mother starts calling him out, just being like, what was it? Paralyzing agents, rubber bullets? Like, God, yeah, I can't, you got all these gadgets, and I just expected you. I thought you would actually have seen things my way. Too bad. I could have been the mother you never had. And then Batman starts calling her out, just being like, you overestimate yourself. You see, Scarecrow's already ducked out on you. He doesn't believe in your cause. So I used him to use you before you could do the same to him. Mother's like, that's stupid. No, that didn't happen. And it's like, oh, and Robin, I never lost faith in my Robin. I just needed to get him out of here. So that way you wouldn't be able to get your hands on him. He's made mistakes, but like, I still believe him. And besides, they got me to you. And he's just like, all right, whatever. Orphan, kill Batman. So at that point, Orphan's about to put him in like a chokehold or something like that, and Batman's like, haha, but you're not going to be able to run away that far because I knew that you would see through my ruse here. Check this out. And he says detonate, and the whole damn town square explodes. Just bombs and rubble everywhere. So he manages to get out of Orphan's grasp. He locks up the parents and the kid, and he goes after Mother and just like, I got you. And he puts her in handcuffs, and then manages to start like saying like, oh yes, I finally got you. And then all of a sudden Orphan gets back up, because of course he didn't actually like kill Orphan or anything. So they start getting into a fight. They crash through into like the movie theaters and all that. He's beating the crap out of Orphan, just like, tell me who my Robin's supposed to be, because Orphan let slip they are the Robin that's going to be his is currently being set up right now. The parents are being killed right now in Gotham on the other side of the world. So at that point, he beats the crap out of Orphan, but Orphan pulls a knife and manages to stab it into Batman's like ribs, and just like, you always get so close, but you're always afraid to pull that final trigger. So we cut back to Mother, who calls the kid over, says like, hey, kid, come over here. I can't get out of these bat cuffs, so I'm going to need you to pick up a big-ass rock and crush my hands. And all the bones will break, but I'll be able to get out of the cuffs. And he's like, oh, but Mother. And she's like, don't question me. Just do it. So he does it, and he's just like, all right, don't worry. My hands will heal. I wouldn't be able to get out of Batman's clutches as easily. So anyway, let's go take care of Batman. So we see the fight continues between him and Orphan. He manages to throw Orphan into a movie theater and is about to beat the ever-loving piss out of him. But then Mother comes in, holding a knife to the kid's throat, just like, hey, if you lay one more hand on my Orphan, I'm going to cut this kid's throat. And the kid's like, she'll do it. I will give my life for Mother. I'm happy to do that. And Batman's like, you're messed up, kid. Don't do it, Mother. I'm not going to do it. You wouldn't do that. And she's like, oh, really? Come on. You can go ahead and stop the battle, and I'll free this child's life. But then Orphan gets up and punches Batman out anyway. So Orphan's about to kill Batman once more. We don't actually see how he gets out of that, as far as I recall. But we go over to St. Hadrian's, where Harper Row is roaming the halls. She bumps into some preppy girl, and the preppy girl's like, where's your outfit? And she's like, I don't go here. But turns out she just used that as a ploy to steal an access card from this preppy girl. We then go down to the prison cell block, where I guess they've done everything they could to torture Orphan into talking, but still nothing's happening here. And it's just like, all right, look, maybe we need to view this from a different angle. The woman who was originally a part of Spiral that betrayed us at like the beginning of this book, she was the one who provided all this stuff. Maybe we need to go deal with that. But then all of a sudden they get a call saying like, hey, there are people on the roof who claim they know Agent 37. They're invading. We got to deal with them. So they rush up to the roof real quick, and we see it's Red Hood and Red Robin, who are like, oh, hi, we finished our plot over with Saint Dumas. We got a bunch of stuff we got to tell you. However, Harper uses her access card to get down into the prison cell where Orphan is being held, and he's like, I know who you are, David Kane. I know what you did to Cassandra. You're awful. You forced her to be a killer. I've seen it all. The sculptor showed me everything. And he's like, yeah, the sculptor. Okay, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But clearly, she didn't tell you everything, because you're not freaking out substantially enough for her to have told you everything. And they literally do the thing. It's just like, what did that telepath tell you? And Harper's like, he told me enough. She showed me that you forced her to kill. And she's like, oh no, it was blah, blah, blah. They're doing the Star Wars bit, but not all the way up. He does specifically say, did the sculptor show you who Cassandra was killing? Because that's a humdinger. And we got that next issue. So the entire book, like issue 1, we set up the idea. Batman shot and killed some people in an alley on the order of Mother. And like, would Batman have done that? Obviously, the answer is no. Do I think that this is a satisfying way to sidestep it? To sidestep what we saw? Yes, I'm okay with it. And the only reason I'm okay with it is because Mother was already a step ahead and used people that were loyal to her as the targets. I think that makes it just like circuitous enough of a plan that it doesn't feel like because Batman, where he's suddenly able to pull one over on Mother here. I like the fact he's immediately called out for it. It cheapens the moment. It makes it so this isn't really that big of a deal, all things considered. And the fact that we were focusing on it is kind of just like, who cares, whatever. But it makes it so Batman is not a murderer, and it doesn't feel like we're just taking an easy way out to say, oh, well, here's why he's not a murderer. It's at least part of the overall plot plan going on. So collectively, it's kind of an in the middle issue for me. I guess I'll say it's a 7. It doesn't feel that great, but it is good. It is a good issue. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this January 27th, 2016. And thank God next week is lighter. I need some time. For anyone who didn't watch the Teen Titans section, a little behind the scenes reveal here. I did the review of that comic, and I was impassioned. I was angry. I was so very loud. And then I realized I forgot to record it. So you saw take number 2, which I feel like I matched the energy of, but it didn't quite have that same push as the first time around. But yeah, no, that comic book might have killed me. So next week, we've got a shorter list. Like I said, 9 comics. Nothing too bad here. Probably just a couple of tie-ins to like Savage Dawn or whatever. We have, in alphabetical order, Action Comics, Batgirl, Batman Beyond, Detective Comics, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Midnighter, the new miniseries for Swamp Thing, number 2 on that one, and Batman and Robin Eternal is, of course, trucking on along. Though we are approaching the end of that. I think we are going to be done by end of March, if I remember correctly. Oh, I guess that's another thing I guess I should pump out here a little bit. So for anyone who's been watching the show for, I guess 2 years now, last 2 years of the show, it's been coming out on Tuesdays, new episodes every Tuesday. And that is because 10 years ago, this date, January 27th, was a Wednesday. I say 2 years ago, 12 years ago, you know what I mean. It was a Wednesday, the new release for Comic Book Day. However, because of leap years messing everything up, at the end of February, we're going to be shifting the show back to Mondays. So you'll have a new episode of Comics from the Multiverse on Sunday, followed by a new episode of my show on Monday, and we'll ride that on out until the end of the show at episode like 250 something. So yeah, just know that that's happening there. But if you have any comments that you would like to share on my rapidly changing schedule or any of the comics that I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, you can put those down in the comment section down below. I promise I'm not trying to just wrap this up as quickly as possible because the episode is far too long. I'm also doing it because I have stuff to do. So yeah, comments there. Otherwise, we also have a Discord, subreddit, a Patreon. That's all there. There's an audio feed version, but if you're listening to this on the video version, stick with that. I have visuals. Use them. And beyond that, I have nothing more to really say. Thank you for watching, listening, however you consume this podcast. Be sure to give it positive interactions, whatever that may look like. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.